everyone, it's that time of the week again. It's the return of the never-ending return of By the Numbers, another episode. Episode 130 since the relaunch. I'm your host, Richard Lewis, wearing a t-shirt with his name on it. Available from my merch store if you want to walk around and pretend you're me. Don't know why anyone would do that. I don't even like doing that. Joining me as he always does, someone who's never pretended to be me, doesn't even pretend to be a person a lot of the time, or a nice guy, or anything like that. No pretense whatsoever. It's Duncan Thorin Shields. Sam's pressing the buttons, aren't you, you little cunt?
All right,
What's that about? I didn't even unmute my mic. I was in shock. I was like, yes.
I'm just. Right, first of all, VOD actually is now guaranteed demonetized because I've used what YouTube to find a strong language.
Why have you done that?
Why have I done it in the? It's all right, Sam. You can just take it out. No reason to call Sam a cunt. He's a lovely guy.
Just take that same bit, but put it like 10 minutes into the VOD, if you could, please.
Slide that in.
Then suddenly it becomes okay.
I know that never made sense to me, but whatever.
No, I had to record another Deserto thing with we do this show talking about influencers and that. And Mike Kent, my co-worker, is he keeps talking about the Nawwk boys who are like some YouTube pranksters. It's just me and Sam are just like every day just blown away that I have to like put time aside to talk about the Nawwk boys. That's what my life's become, Duncan. So, you know, I'm increasing in bitterness and sourness. Getting paid loads for it, like, so whatever. But anyway, there you go. Let's also shout out our sponsors.
Fucking NiKo or something.
This is the mad part, like, as well. Like, I foolishly said it last episode. Don't worry, there'll be no news next week. All the news.
I know.
And yet we are going to segue into petty grievances.
Yeah, of course.
With Duncan Shields and NiKo. That's where we're going to start the show. But first, a shout out to the sponsors. Obviously, .com. We had a wonderful chat with them today. We're making moves on the bot major. It's all shaping up nicely. So definitely show them some love. Go to .com/RLS or beepwith9es.com. Sign up there. Get an account. If you want to place bets on esports events, you can. You don't have to. You can also, they do giveaways and stuff over there. They do great content. Just check them out. And also our other sponsor, NordVPN. Get a VPN. You know you need one. And this is a great deal. NordVPN.com/RLS, 70% off. It's awesome. Right then. So, it's the only time Duncan's ever really had any input on the show for ages. Right? I just had a message where he said, Richard, let me get all my shit off about NiKo, right?
9 a.m. as well. The best part was his 9 a.m. Like, had his morning coffee. He's like, right then, let's open up this arsehole.
It's only 13 hours I'm going to remember what I want to say about this, Richard. 13 hours.
Right. Well, listen, mate, let's do it, right? Because obviously, for those who don't know, Thorin made a video basically saying that NiKo has been a fool to himself because the in-game leader, NiKo, is holding back the player, NiKo, and indeed the team FaZe, stopping NiKo achieving true success because of his towering hubris and false belief that he can somehow lead FaZe to being a good team and he is the man for that job. Now, I watched the video, I'll be honest, I think it was direct, it was blunt, that's what Thorin does, but I don't think there was anything outrageous in it or anything false in it. NiKo then tweeted out basically saying, I can't believe people think I'm an egomaniac in charge of everything. I can't believe it. I don't believe it.
I know.
Right? So he tweeted that out, and then and he said he would love to do an interview to set community perceptions straight about him, right? So people obviously tweeted at him, well, why don't you do one with Richard? Why don't you do one with Thorin? And just to prove he's not a fucking egomaniac, he tweeted out, I would do one with Thorin when he deserves to talk to me. So there you go. You've nailed it. You've nailed the case, NiKo. No problem with ego here. No problem at all. Like, you fucking owned it there, mate. How could anyone call this guy anything other but humble, Duncan?
The stupidest part about this, by the way, is his actual first tweet, which, listen, it obviously is a mild subtweet, but you know what? Like, I'll steal Manny's argument. To be fair, it's something a lot of people that aren't me have said, and it's obviously like a massive community sentiment. I'd even guess, you know, when he does those tweets, like, sorry for the bad performance, I'll bet his tweets are full of people like, stop being the IGL, you can't, or whatever. So I'm sure it's something on his mind, right? It's probably like one of those straw that broke the camel's back, because to him, maybe he thinks I'm trying to rile that up again, because we all know how, fucking like basically how uncharitable pro players are towards content creators. Everything we do is just horror, clickbait. It's just, we all know the world they live in, and I get it. They're experiencing a lot of criticism, and obviously they can just put my face on front of all the criticism and just see it as me, or even worse, where they imagine I'm like the fucking Pied Piper and everyone just does what I say. Like, if that was the case, I think the perceptual flashpoint would be very different on Reddit. I'm just going to say that right off the gate. If you were following this year, NiKo, doesn't always go the way I want, mate. Even when I've done fuck all sometimes. So what I would say is this. As I was pointing out, the first tweet, actually, I think is totally fine. Like, I would never even have commented on that. If he wants to just basically say, essentially, I think people have like a misperception about me. For example, maybe I didn't kick Carrigan. Actually, it was a thing inside the org. I'll just address that briefly, which is that I'll just say, one of the things people like NiKo, being an egomaniac, never take into account is, I know your teammates. Some of your teammates aren't always happy with you. They come and tell me things about you. Ex-teammates tell me things about you. People who are friends of yours tell me things about you. By the way, not all maliciously. In the same way, like Richard knows this, we're just trafficking information. You have chats with people, conversations go around.
Asking advice.
They give you their thoughts. They ask you things. What should I do with this? Like, this person might get kicked. This person might join. Or they just want to have a grumble, let off some steam, but they don't want to do it publicly. They don't want to have a big fight. So, okay, that happens, right? And as a result, you get a sense for the pulse of the community, what's going on in teams, what's going on in place. But I will always say, I would never claim for a fact to know what's going on in another person's team. Well, now I'm not in. Like, I cannot claim for a fact, by the way, I know NiKo kicked Carrigan. But I will say, put it this way, I might even do a video on this because he's pissing me off enough. Put it this way, just his own statements and the statements of the other FaZe Clan members, if they don't directly say it, they basically imply it if you can do even a simple bit of lateral thinking. As in, like, if you actually imagine, like, NiKo's done that classic thing people do, where they don't think through, like, because they're obviously, like, lying, they don't think through, if my alibi was real, what would this imply? So, for example, if his alibi is real, that he had nothing to do with Carrigan being kicked, but bizarrely, there was an implication that it was Carrigan or him, and ended up being him, and he clearly had a vote of no confidence. Like, you know what I mean? And then Rain says, well, me and Guardian didn't want him kicked. It's like, mate, do some basic maths on the chalkboard here. Like, where's this coming out with? Like, best case scenario, what you're saying is, in a team which I am the overwhelming draw, the number one player within, the most central piece that I'm even admitting FaZe Clan has built the team around, I not only have no power, but I've never attempted to exert any power. Well, then you're just a bloody fool, aren't you? Like, you haven't even thought through your alibi, my G. That doesn't even make sense. Like, if that's true, you're even more of a fool about your career than I even thought. Because guess what? You're even the IGL now. I don't know if any fans know this, but the IGLs, even to this day, typically decide who gets kicked and joins teams. That's just a standard role. Like, GMs don't even know enough. They tend to just listen to their IGL. In fact, that's the whole thing. That's why Carrigan probably got kicked, by the way. I imagine some of the FaZe owners, were out on him. But then what they probably did, this is a small point to make, is they maybe polled the players, or they got a feel for where the players were headed, or they just listened to the players and took initiative, like, they don't seem to like the way it's going. So they were like, right, well, if I have to pick between Carrigan and NiKo, then I go with it, right? The point is, you don't always have to directly say to them, I, NiKo, demand Carrigan be removed. I mean, like, you don't have to do that, mate. That's not what it takes. So let's not play silly beggars and pretend like you just sat there and you were like, what? Germany is invading Russia on these. No, shut the fuck up. Like, you knew what was going on the whole time. You almost certainly had part to do it. But it's at minimum, you squeezed him out of the fucking IGL role, which is his role, you daft cunt. So that in itself obviously made him be unemployed.
So there was a thread, right, which referred back to the interview I did on the channel. There's another beat for you.
Okay.
Where I interviewed Carrigan, and we talked about that. And so Carrigan said specifically, FaZe was going to sell NiKo to MiBR.
That was the story. Sure, another Cold Zero, of course.
Yeah, another famous Brazilian. And that deal was apparently all but done. They called Carrigan and said, so you're going to be rebuilding the team in his absence, essentially. But then he ended up, obviously, the deal fell through. And then suddenly, that was when Carrigan found out he was sort of out on his arse. And people are saying, well, this exonerates NiKo.
It does the opposite, if anything. The implication is the opposite. Think about it, right? What they're saying there is, right, Carrigan, good news, mate. We're building the team around you. Square brackets. We obviously believe in you, think you're a good in-game leader. In fact, you're the future of our org. Oh, NiKo's staying. Carrigan, bizarrely, you're now just out. Even though the only person now staying who was leaving is NiKo. But again, don't read anything into that. He definitely isn't the reason you're out. And now, even though yesterday I said you were the future implication, now you're actually already our past. So get out, even though, by the way, NiKo definitely didn't want this. Like, give me, like, listen, all I'm saying is, like, I don't need to have the facts in this case. I'll take a jury of my 12 peers and I'll just say, do you believe this story? If they overwhelmingly say no, let's just let that one sail. So anyway, the point I was making was, even though I don't believe it, I don't claim to know it. I never would. You know this because we both do the same thing. I'm very careful with my wording on those things. I never claim to know Flusher cheated. I never claim to know these things happen because I can't. I'm trafficking in information. But as we all know, it's all the strength of your opinion in that sense is based on the quality of your sources. And I have some fucking impeccable sources, my G. It's the same reason why all those people wonder how I just nailed year after year, like all the fucking foibles of like Reckless and League of Legends. Mate, nearly all of his teammates at this point in time have been like, mates, I might have complained to him about it. It's like, it's ridiculous at this point. Like, what's funny is it's the fan who's the mentally ill one who's like, why are you just making shit up? It's like, because you aren't in my private conversations. It's not really a fucking mystery. But the one thing I will not abide by, and what did trigger me was the second part of it. That's actually the egregious part, is the idea that NiKo would imply, it's a pretty common thing that pros tried to do, that I'm not on his level. Like, I don't deserve to talk to him about his career. Because here's the thing, right? I don't mind saying pro players are the main reason why everyone's watching esports, why it's an amazing field to follow. Without them, we have nothing, right? But the idea they're the only thing is fucking ridiculous. And especially when you consider, like, it's bad enough if he'd have said that to like a top caster or something who definitely plays a part in his success and what he's doing. But you're talking to someone who literally built your industry that you now exist in as literally just a little kid from Bosnia, a country, by the way, that would have never had a chance to make it in esports. And you're now in a situation where you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And you want to act as though I did nothing to do with that at any point in my entire career, which, by the way, you don't even know my career, you fucking clown, because you were probably 2 when I began it professionally in 2001 or something, I'm going to guess. That you can't be that old. Then you got to add in, let's go the other way on that one. Like, yeah, I've been able to follow your career. I've done content around you. That's probably helped me in some ways. But like, if we're talking about whose contribution to the history of esports is more, as good as a player you are, mate, man's bigger. And I don't give a fuck if anyone thinks I'm egotistical. No one else is going to say it for me, so I'll just say it myself, mate. It's undeniably bigger. I've made this point today, I've put over 19 professional years of my life into this game. I used to be following this game, building up the history of it. When I've told these stories before, people would treat me like scum who were pro players. The same pro players, literally unsolicited, send me like Facebook messages all the time, like, oh, listen, mate, like, sorry about the way I behaved back then. Like, it's really cool the way esports popped off now. I love watching your content. Dude, one of them even admitted I'd like fucking fan logicked him on his like fake account or some shit. Like, those guys get it now. They didn't when they were playing. They really did think that, like, I always give the analogy that like they were like a fucking model and then we were like the weird foot fetish guy who was like, oh, can I have a picture of your feet? They were like, why the fuck would you want my config? Like, I just play games, mate. I'm just good at games. Because, you know, like back in CS 1.6, when there was no money, the entire swagger, it's basically what ruined the UK scene, was you had to pretend you weren't really a nerd, even though you were playing fucking CS 8 hours a night. So, yeah, guys like that always want to go with that angle. And it's so whack because, mate, if I'm just some loser who's involved in the game, okay, I'll do the same to you. You're just a guy who's really good at moving his wrist inside video games. Problem for you, we're not inside a video game. Inside a video game, you told me all day long, I'd be at your mercy. Sadly for you, we're in real life, where what I've done actually matters, where what I've done is also essential to what you do, and you're just ignoring that completely. So the idea, like, I don't deserve to talk to you. As I pointed out, that's why I went to that personal insult, by the way, because it's the other way around. You don't deserve to talk to me. What have I ever done to this fucking cunt in real life, ever? What have I ever done to him that would be egregious? I've maybe said opinions he doesn't like, okay? But I'll tell people this story. So when we were doing E-League Season 2 in Atlanta, we all got put up in this hotel called the W, which is like a 4-star hotel. And we're talking American 4-star standards, by the way. Like, it's one of those hotels where, put it this way, I used to get annoyed just how much the fucking room service was. That's how actually nice it is. And so because this place is so nice, and Atlanta's like such like great weather until like November, that's how crazy it is. Like October, you can still wear shorts. If you went into like this patio area, everyone just hung out there after the games. After every day of E-League, you hung out there, you had a few beers, and it was a massive mixed crowd. You know, you'd have Semler with the French players if G2 was there, or you'd have like Moses with Stewie 2K and the Cloud9 boys. And then what would happen is, right, Mouse Sports obviously was NiKo Sports at the time. It was NiKo, a really cool, sick, young prospect, and then a bunch of players that, let's be real, no one really cared about except Chris J because he's cool. And maybe, like, I think Lowell was in the team. He's all right guy. Seems very quiet.
I like hanging out with Dennis and Spitty. They were good guys to have a drink with. I just don't rate them as players, you know. I want that on the record, though.
That's what we're going to get to.
They were cool guys.
That's what we're going to get to. They were to you, Richard, but unfortunately, because I always pointed out they were some of the key people holding NiKo back, Dennis especially,
Right.
I don't blame him necessarily, but he would just do that thing where he'd get his third beer in him, and and there's the thing, I never go up to any player at any fucking after party or bar ever to talk about Counter-Strike, because I'm done talking about Counter-Strike. That is my day job. I don't want to talk about it when I'm having a beer, but they always have to come up to me when they get the second or third beer courage in them. And Dennis used to be a criminal offender for this, because what he would do is come up half pissed and just repeat over and over again, like, well, mate, why am I doing good in the game then, mate? And I go, like, your stats are really bad. And you go, okay. And here's the thing, like, Sam, he obviously thought, because he's German, and remember, they actually haven't invented humor yet. Like, he probably came like 10 a joke to try some bants on me. Like, he basically thought that by saying mate over and over again, he was like owning me because I'm British and just going, well, mate, what about that game, mate? Like best of one or something. And I would just be like, what I do is I humor them at first. I'll just be like, well, they want to banter, right? Okay, yeah, blah, blah, blah. You know, like NiKo carried you, whatever, like that, whatever. You'll see if you're in the team, whatever. But then once I realized, like Dennis, unfortunately, they've got like a bee in their bonnet and they're actually just angry and just want to like shout at you. Eventually I just start going like, can you please go away, mate? Like this is actually inappropriate now. Like I'm not at work. This isn't the venue for it. Also, it's boring. Like you just
laughing.
Have you ever put a 3-minute timer on your phone, put it on the table?
I should.
I remember
if you're not gone by the time that
good old
zero, you're not going to have a good time.
Maybe we should go to bed.
That's how you make people leave. You give them the visual. This is my fuse. Stare at it, but when it's zero,
I should have done that.
Fists will fly, sir.
So here's the problem. NiKo himself wouldn't come up because he is an egotistical twat. But what he'd do is he'd waddle up like the fucking penguin out of Batman Returns behind Dennis, stand there, extra. I know, fuck him. Listen, Danny DeVito can at least pretend to be good. So he'd have his fifth fucking pure vodka or whatever because he's like a little kid away from home. And this is the thing about NiKo. He would just literally like stand there laughing and then just like get more and more pissed, but never even interact in the conversations. I used to just think, what a fucking loser this guy is. But whatever, I get it. Like, you know what? He's away from home. He's in a team with Germans, a fucking Dutch guy, and like a guy from Spain. Like, whatever, I get it. There's not much of a social scene going on in this team. They weren't the most beloved team. But this is where it kills me. So Richard remembers this story. So what happens is, me and Richard have only come maybe like, because remember, the players finish way earlier than us in the day when their group games finish, especially because they won like the 2 best of ones or whatever, right? We come maybe 3 hours after they've been drinking. So me and Richard have had maybe like 2 drinks each, and we're talking like a Bud Light or a fucking like, you know, a simple cocktail. And the woman comes along when it's like 2 a.m. And there's this massive load of drinks that have been drunk on the table by the Mouse Sports boys. And this guy comes along, I can't remember if it's a woman or a man, comes along and basically says, like, I'm going to need to settle this bar tab.
Oh, well, no. They're really, because they do great service at the W. They sent one of the lovely, charming bar staff first.
Okay.
But then, if you remember, when NiKo's card got declined, suddenly there was a giant man covered in tattoos, like one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen. And he was asking about where the money was. And the tone changed ever so slightly round about that moment, as I recall.
But the problem with this is, right, when the first person asked NiKo and the Mouse Sports boys, like, can you pay for this bar tab? Right, this is where I already saw what a fucking joke that was a team. Because first of all, people like Dennis and Spiddy were just sort of going like, you know, like almost like comically like pulling out their pockets, like, no, I've got any money. And just looking at NiKo, because obviously they knew like NiKo's a fucking money maker, isn't he? And if you know NiKo, he is sort of the party boy like that. Like if he had the money, he might actually pick up a round. Never done it for me because he's a wanker, but he do it for other people, I'm sure his friends. So anyway, this fucking guy starts telling the guy, like he basically thinks it's a joke and starts saying to the guy, like, sort of like, don't have any money though. And then the guy's just going, I'm literally, sir, going to have to walk you to this cash machine and take money out. NiKo goes there. I remember it did work first. He took like 50 euros.
Yeah, but then
out.
his day limit kicked in.
That could have been true.
Yeah.
But basically, he himself, they collectively owed about 400 euros or something crazy.
Oh, it was way more. It was way more because you settled $200. I settled $400 from the top. Mate, it was an entire team plus friends bar tab in a 4-star hotel in America for about 8 hours, maybe more of solid drinking, mate. It was probably about $2,000. It was fucking insane. And this is the
maddest part. All you need to know about how fucked in the head these guys are is I'm not friends with them. I wasn't even drinking with them. As I told you, I had 2 drinks. But what happened was I knew if this fucking kicks off, like, E-League themselves might just literally stop Counter-Strike. If they find out that when they bring people and put them in a mega hotel, they literally just fuck the entire bar staff, wreck the reputation of E-League, who, by the way, put, like, celebrities in those hotels that are on their other TV shows. I just remembered thinking, like, this is just going to be bad for Counter-Strike itself. So I even told the guy, listen, mate, I know because I'm studying, you're going to think I'm friends with them. I actually have nothing to do with this, but I will actually, if we can get everyone else to chip in, I'll pay like 200 of it. So I paid 200 of my own. By the way, NiKo, I come from a literal fucking poor working class family, you fucking wanker. And I made probably like 60,000 euros the first 10 years of my career. But some tosser like you is going to take 200 euro from me, never pay it back ever, and then have the fucking gall to talk shit. So this is the maddest detail of all. If you know this detail, you cannot think of NiKo as anything other than a fucking wretched cunt, which is this. It's such a nice hotel that they even were brainwashed themselves to think, well, if all these people are staying here, maybe they're like actually rich people. So we don't want to get in sort of like piss them off and make them not come. So they even told NiKo, you know what? I just need half of it. Again, that even made me think, Richard, what the fuck life is this guy living where he's walking on a cloud like this? If I owed someone £10 bar tab where I'm coming from, I'd be getting a beat down in the alley afterwards. It's not a fucking movie or a cartoon where I'd be cleaning dishes in the back like at the Italian restaurant in the comic. Like, I would be getting the shit kicked out of me. This motherfucker got let off 1,000 euros, didn't even pay the rest. Me and Richard, remember, people he has never shown respect to, paid all the rest of it. He's never brought it up. He's never paid it back. And I'll tell people one last detail.
He probably don't remember either because he was fucking arsehole. He was trolleyed.
So he's tried on Twitter to sort of like, obviously he's realised I've painted him with a corner when I've said that, right? Because he must know it's true. So what he said in reply was, I said, like, you owe me $200 for that, like, moron. So he just replied, like, DM me your PayPal. Now, I'm not going to be DMing you anything, NiKo, unless I just take a nice picture of my dick or something, mate. So... what I did instead was, I thought, you know what? I don't even need this cunt's money. I wouldn't want to give him my PayPal anyway. So I decided I'd actually do like the classy thing. And I just said, you know what, mate? Find a charity in Bosnia, donate the 200 there, and just post a screenshot here to prove it. Unsurprisingly, crickets, NiKo never did it because obviously he probably just having his 7th fucking cocktail of the morning. Probably he ran up another bar tab in the meantime. So the tosser hasn't even made good on that. To a fucking charity in his own country, by the way. Essentially, if you can't follow the maths there, I would have given $200 to a charity in Bosnia. Now, I don't give a fuck about Bosnia, mate. So, like, the idea he can't even follow through on that, what a colossal fuck up of a human being. And the big problem is this. The guy would already be bad. Because if you've ever met him and you've ever seen the way he behaves, it's that he is brilliant at what he does. So people basically give him the easiest life possible. But this is what pisses me off. It's one of the reasons I made that video. Is it's one thing if his teammates do that to him. They do rely on him. He's their bread and butter. But when other people in the industry enable this guy over and over and over again, he really is the Bosnian FNX. Because what I was told by a number of people in the Brazilian scene is like, look, just forget about FNX. He'll never be back and you'll never get through to him because the problem is he's too popular and he has a massive circle and entourage that just tell him all the time, you're brilliant. Like, it's not you, like it's them. They're just hating, bro. Like they just tell him. And they would be even saying that, by the way, about like Cold Zero, for like other great players in his team. They'd be telling him they're just jealous of you, man. That's what they're trying to tell you. You're playing wrong. So what's mad is NiKo's got that group, including, by the way, people I actually consider friends. But the problem is, we all know how friendship skews these things. So to me, the whole thing's just fucking outrageous. It's like I say, you can definitely argue your points. You can say I'm wrong. You can say I've got bad information. You can even say you don't like me. Don't ever take that angle, though, especially when you're a little piece of shit who obviously doesn't even know the value of $200. And literally, you owe me that money. You owe me it. And now you owe it to a Bosnian charity. And if you don't do that, I'll just call you up for basically stealing from charity because you've stolen my charity money there. One last thing I'm going to say. is I actually am really shocked, or I used to be, that he behaves this way, right? Because everyone I have ever met, I'm not exaggerating, everyone who is from basically the former Yugoslavia, Serbia, Croatia, they are the soundest fucking people in the world. That's why I have
seen some real shit. That's why.
That's why I have unlimited respect for Kassad, for Janko, for most of the people from that area. But I thought about this today. I think that's why. I think that's why he is the way he is, Richard. And I'm going to make a speculation here. Because I think, off the top of my head, I believe he's at least a few years younger than most of those. Definitely Kassad, but I think he's even younger than Janko. Logically, he might not have grown up through that. He might have been like 3 years old when all that, because that's what they always say, is like that really like set their life like a different course.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
And as a result, they're all super grateful for like the amazing lives they've been able to. I think he missed that. So he didn't have that aspect that like sort of was just what made them cool. I mean, it sounds fucked up when you say it like that, but basically their reaction to it.
No, I mean, I remember when I did that interview with Janko, obviously we talked a lot about the war and like kind of foreign intervention and all that stuff. But mate, what happened in the former Yugoslavia is mind-blowing. You can't believe it was happening in Central Europe. It's really, really awful. And the nations that have kind of risen out of that, you know, it's incredible really to see how far they've come in such a small time when, you know, you were literally talking about, you know, horrific civil wars raging there when I was a young man. You know, crazy how recent it is and how people forget. But just to add an additional detail to that story, because this obviously I don't think you knew this point by then, because I think you were negotiating the $200 that you were paying. I said that basically like I would chip in as well, because I didn't want to have to explain why I was on site as an E-League employee to this fucking train wreck of just
we're basically babysitting these guys, aren't we?
Yeah. So, and like, listen, anyone who's been out with me knows that it's very rare I'm the fucking guy that, like, loses it. Generally, what I do is I go, all right, well, everyone else is 5 sheets to the wind. I'm going to fucking not drink tonight so I can make sure people get in taxis, people get to bed, there's no creeping going on or any weird fucked up shit. You know, I try and look after everyone. That's the role I occupy, as like the older guy who can actually, you know, handle his liquor to a ridiculous amount. But anyway, in this situation, like I say, you were talking a very expensive bar tab. And I remember having this conversation with NiKo. It blew my mind. He literally said to me that I should be picking up the entire tab. Me, because I work for E-League. And I'm going, but E-League don't cover your drinks, so why would that ever be true? And he was going, yes, but you have put me in a hotel that doesn't accept my card. And the stress and the insult of it all, you should definitely... So literally arguing, pissed out of his face, like eyes rolled up in his head, like that famous picture of him, like just walking out, stinking of vodka, arguing with me about why I need to pay the bar tab. He ran up. Like I say, I'd been there all of an hour, maybe less, by the time this fucking drama kicked off. Also, I was the guy that had to talk down the fucking hired muscle that came down the stairs. And this guy, I'm not easily intimidated. I wouldn't have wanted to upset him, like, but and trust me, he was clearly the person they bring out when they feel that all other methods have been exhausted. He was sticking his chest out. He was ready to go, mate. He'd clearly just unhooked the bag of stegs that he was on permanently and was just looking to fucking rumble with a bunch of deadbeats.
Now, like, when you say that, it was one of those people where Richard will know this, but I guess people like NiKo wouldn't. The way you know someone is like hired muscle is when you're stood next to them. If they're talking to someone else and you talk, it's like a fucking tyrannosaurus, it's like a fucking raptor or something, like laser focus.
Oh, man.
And they just look at you, and when they look at you, they quickly scan you as though, like, am I gonna have to fucking deck this? Like, that's what they're doing the whole time. So when you see that, you go, right,
their lizard brain is just assessing threats. No, there's no threats, man. Everything's a threat. Lizard brain, like, it's fucking mad. Like, when you are dealing with the fucking the animals that are just in a perma state of rumbling. It's ridiculous. So I'm trying to explain to one of those guys, like, also as well, NiKo was underage at the time.
By the way, you think I didn't keep this story secret for a reason, by the way, guys?
Yeah.
Because I actually also thought this could also fuck this guy's whole career up, by the way.
Yeah.
If this sort of thing comes out. So at the time,
he was 20 years old, if I remember rightly. Yeah, he was.
Makes sense.
Yeah, he was about 20 years old, so he shouldn't even have been drinking. But because it was a large party, you know, drinks just get passed around. We're all on a patio. You know, he looks old enough. He's in an established party with an established business that has a partnership with that. So That's a potential nightmare. That's like, that's the bar getting shut down. That's fucking cops being called. That's a night in the cells before your games. So obviously what I've done is I've stepped in and I'm like, listen, my name's Richard Lewis, so you probably don't know me, but I do work for E-League. I'm a representative of Turner Sports. Here's my ID card. We have a private account here. It's very embarrassing. They've traveled from overseas and their credit cards aren't working, so I'll do whatever I need to do to make it right, and I can just expense it or whatever. And that was why they were like, oh, well, you can only pay half and we'll square it up later, right? Because it was like, oh, you're an account holder. But meanwhile, while I'm doing all of this, talking down the perma rumbler and the fucking bar staff who've like literally waited on us all night dealing with a bunch of pissed arseholes, right? Like, and then at the end, not only are they're not getting a tip if they're not getting the fucking tab settled, are they? So imagine how fuming they are. Like, so the bar staff aren't happy because, like, obviously tips are where you make the money if you work in the service industry in America. Well, there's not going to be any tips if there's not going to be any fucking bar tab being settled. So settling half of the bar tab means they've been completely skanked for their night's efforts. So obviously I'm staying in that hotel. We're all staying in that hotel. You don't want fucking daggers from the fucking people who are serving you every day. Like, it was an absolute horrible scene. And while I'm trying to smooth all this over, like saying, oh, here's some tips, and like, sorry about that. Like, they're just young, first time overseas, like, really sorry. I'm in here all the time. You recognize me, right? Yeah. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm good for it, right? Don't worry. Next time you're serving me, $50, no bother. Like, going around individually when it's over. While this is happening, NiKo's going, why don't you just settle the fucking tab for me, mate? Like, hang on, NiKo, mate, hang on. Like, all thing was ridiculous, like how much of a cunt he was that night. Like, so to say that people like me and you are like bad guys,
I know.
It's like, listen, mate, we did you a solid there. Like, it could have been career altering for you.
What a disloyal bitch.
Yeah, it could have been career altering for that guy.
Get out the MiBR font. We've got another one to make.
Yeah, I know, right?
This guy's bitch made too. All I'll say is this. After hearing that story, two things I want you to consider. Does NiKo sound like an incredibly entitled individual who can never imagine he's in the wrong? And two, would he in any way manipulate his teammates and his team to get things all his way, and at the end of it, claim none of it was his responsibility and someone else should pay the tab of FaZe Clan, as it were? It's why I did it there. I was also my fucking expert lawyer. Like, I put it to you, Liz. Whatever. TV fucking dramas and procedures.
But yeah, so here's what I'll do. You don't want to talk to Duncan, you can fucking talk to me, right? Surely I've done enough to deserve a moment of your time. But don't expect it to be like an easy interview. It's not going to be, mate. I'm going to ask you some hard questions, and you're not going to like it. But if you want to do it, even though, no secret, I don't really like you, NiKo, like straight up, like, it's not about that, is it? It's not about who likes each other. It's like, listen, let's get together. We'll do a serious interview. My distaste for your past behavior and personality will not come through in any way, shape, or form in the interview. But you will get a fucking grilling. You will get a grilling, right? And if you're down for that because you think you got nothing to hide and you can articulate yourself well, fine, do it. Or why don't you do what every little bitch over at FaZe does and just release a YouTube video, The Truth by FaZe Banks, and just tell a bunch of lies because your fans will gobble it up. So your call, mate. You can talk to a real journalist or you can go down the route you're thinking about. Entirely up to you. Anyway. There you go. Is it all out of your system now?
Yeah,
Do you feel good? Do you feel purged like a nice, glorious emetic? Right?
And by the way, if people don't know, this is one of the reasons I will never truly understand why players go personal. Because as I've always said, keep it banter. Don't ever threaten violence, by the way. And I won't say anything more, but I'll just leave that as a line. Don't ever threaten violence. Because I ain't like Richard, by the way. It ain't going to be a happy ending with me. Secondly, I'll also say this. Just keep it banter. Like, you can say I'm shit, you can say I'm bad at my job, whatever. Keep it banter and there's no problem. But they always have to cross that line because the reason they do it, we all know why. Because they can't actually think of anything good to say about our jobs or something good. So what they do is they go, well, there's the one area no one's going, so I'll get the low blowing.
And like you say, I don't mind if people want to say, like, my work's dog shit or, I'm not funny or I'm a boomer or it's like, you're all fine. Yeah, you're all entitled to your opinions, but like, again, when you start basically sort of intimating that, like, I lack integrity or I lack ethics, it's like, right, now we're getting to now we're getting to a part where it's like that can impugning my reputation in that way can harm my job.
That's like me saying, I know for a fact you cheated in the game.
Exactly.
As a
yeah,
pro.
totally. Yeah.
It's similar. Yeah. Like at that point in time, you are effectively saying that this person should not be able to do their job. They are not capable. I'll also throw in as well, to be fair, I actually know one of the answers to my own question there, which is there's also a weird type of person in the world who doesn't like use cause and effect. They essentially think every action is isolated. So a great example would be the thousands of Astralis fans who've told me that I unprovoked attacked Device, a player who replied to a tweet that didn't mention him and directly insulted me, and then I responded in kind. But I've been told that, I mean, there was even literally like a journalist who lied, and that was the title of his video. So like stuff like that is outrageous. Like, again, are you not connecting basic facts in this scenario? That would be, well, I mean, I won't give an obvious example there, but that would be like if someone committed violence to someone else and then the other person, to defend themselves, killed them, and you were just like murdered in cold blood, didn't do anything. It's like, well, no, the first action clearly plays into that. Like, you can't ignore it. It's not in a vacuum, is it, mate? So, like, in this scenario, like, it just basically this whole situation is just another example of how ridiculously out of control some of the egos of these people are.
Yeah. And speaking of that, the big story of the week. I know, just when you think you're going to get a...
Yeah, you know what? I'll fully admit on this one, I genuinely didn't see this one coming.
No, I didn't either.
Because, like, as a setup, I actually even thought if there's one thing Fallen won't do, it's fuck up his paper. Because that's all he's got left at this point in time. And by the way, only set to grow if he keeps business relationships with those people. So I can't believe, listen, of all the two-faced things he's done, that is probably the worst I've ever seen. He basically took his last, like, friends in the industry, people who covered for him for ages, let him skate by for ages, paid him a king's ransom, and he just turned on them at the last moment. Like, this, I don't think they get it. Well, a lot of the incidents were bad, but this particular one with them turning on Gowlers and MiBR is probably the worst of them all. It's like at the very end, they killed the people trying to throw a fucking life raft in for you, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's the going under the waters. Quick, get a life raft in there.
So anyway, give us I guess you should set up the story. Come on.
Yeah, I got to, mate. You're fucking hot to try. Have a break. Put the sugar down. Let's go. Right. So the big story this week, MiBR finally, after all of the issues they've had, all of the behavioral problems they've had, the terrible results that they've had, where they're losing to Copenhagen Flames, who were like 82nd in the world at the time they beat them or something. They finally made a change. The management of MiBR, which obviously parent company is the Immortals Group, they decided to make the cuts. Now, Dead, the coach, was cut. Not a surprise. He was staring into the abyss anyway. We have no idea what's going to happen to him. He's got 2 coaching bans. There could be more to come. We don't know what's going to come out in the ESIC investigation. If there's time, we'll give you an update about that a little bit later on. But yeah, so it's a no-brainer to cut him, right? Because what can he realistically do? And if Valve are going to cut the coaching role, that's just one way to save having a salary, just, get rid of him. They cut Taco. Not so much of a surprise, that one. I mean, Taco has clearly been the worst player in this team. There's no really excusing, like, but it's a role player. And there's none of this. There's no qualifying statements that justify how much
I don't know how any of them can justify it, though. That's the crazy thing. Like, think about it. These aren't just, like, bad results. Like, I always say this. Everyone who's watched this show can corroborate. One of the things I've tried to stress the last few years is that when results really go to shit, it's never one player. Like, when they're as bad as this, it's almost every player in it. Like, at this point, I'd be saying, like, you can pick 2 max, maybe, that you keep. Like, the idea they're aggrieved that 1 is going to be a cut, or 2 is like, are you out your motherfucking mad? These are more mad, entitled people who'll never accept responsibility.
No, never. And then, perhaps more surprisingly of all, the guy who would statistically, although he'd had some terrible series, but overall was like the best player in the team, they cut Fur as well, which makes me believe it is to do with behavioral stuff.
It makes sense.
Because this guy's been a fucking nightmare. As I outlined in my article, where I basically listed all of the many sins that they've been allowed to get away with in the scene, he had that ban and fine for racism, and then just a few days later was saying the Furia players weren't men and taking up the arse and all this crazy stuff, like saying it on Twitch. It's a violation of Twitch TOS. No action taken. It's an outrageous way to represent your brand, spouting what is essentially homophobia. Wage, you've got another guy that likes to do that on your team. It has to be behavioral because he was the best player on the team. So this finally sort of shows some level of self-awareness from MiBR. But then what happens afterwards? Because these guys are so fucking delusional and so fucking egotistical, what should have just been, yeah, well, we did need to make some changes. Like, realistically, how could we justify it? And we had a good run. Fucking hell, they let us do this for 18 months. And now, we're losing to Whistler Krakow online. Like, yeah, this is a mess. So KNG immediately comes out and says, I do not agree with the changes in the team. Doesn't matter, mate. Like, you're an employee. That's like saying, I don't agree with the amount of special sauce McDonald's makes me put in the Big Mac. No one gives a fuck, mate. Shut the fuck up, put your sauce on that bun, or do another job. That's life, right? Like, you have forced the org's hand at this point. Your feelings about it are irrelevant. But anyway.
Also, by the way, that theme right there will also tie into a later story about the Blast, where people, again, just decided that, like, company structures don't exist and, like, everyone who works at the company has equal say in everything. So I'm sure that's coming up later.
Yeah, of course. and so... Anyway, KNG, this is the same guy who, by the way, just the week prior was saying, Valve taking away all of our regional major ranking points for provably cheating in the qualifier. I just don't think that's right, me. Now, let me tell you about this 16-year-old kid and why we should all harass him and make his life miserable for not cheating. Same guy,
by the way, remember, where the two biggest crimes ever is that he thinks someone cheated, zero proof, and secondly, I made a joke that didn't even reference him.
Yeah.
Those are the two biggest crimes ever to him.
Yeah. And obviously the FNS.
My third crime was possibly being drunk after making love to my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because remember, to him, that's a crime. Like, that wouldn't be allowed in his totalitarian society.
Not in his totalitarian society.
I want to see the KNG directed Twilight Zone episode. Imagine a man acting drunk after making love to his boyfriend. We should just do some skits, mate. It'd be better than some of this shit, wouldn't it?
No, mate. I don't know if it would.
You record that, Thorin.
Yeah. I tell you what. Yeah, you bring the skits to me and Sam, and we'll tell you what we think. All right. But anyway, so KNG does that, and then Fallen, because he has to go one better. I mean, they're even cunts with it. They're narcissistic, delusional cunts with each other. It's like, fucking hell, first KNG gets my fucking job, right, as in-game leader. And then he's going to come out and publicly say he's not satisfied with the management. Well, watch this, dickhead. So then Fallen comes out and says, I'm not satisfied with the recent decision neither. And I'm standing down.
By the way,
John Cena's it, and fucking Crip walks out of the fucking office.
Let's just be real. Listen, Fallen, you were at one time a very valuable player. That is the most toothless, actual threat I think I've ever heard. I don't want to break it to you like this, mate. You did them a favor by fucking standing down. No one's crying in the MiBR office. I'm just going to tell that right now. You've basically removed the real most popular player from their lineup, who they were desperately trying to keep, just because you'd probably go mental like this if you were released. And you've just done it. You've gone like this. You're like the guy where it's like you just turned the gun on yourself. Like, yeah, but watch this. Blow yourself like, what have you done? The other guy wins, doesn't he?
No, but it's like, I'm trying to think, isn't it an episode that like Tales from the fucking Crypt or something where he plays the person at like Russian roulette? Right, and the guy there's 2 bullets in the gun, and the guy fucking blows his brains out, and so it's like, well, you've won. He goes, nope, there's still one more shot to take, and then just kills himself. Yeah, you've done that, mate. You've Tales from the Cryptid yourself, you mad cunt. It's like, it's so ridiculous. But again, do you know why? Because, well, first of all, this isn't even speculation at this point. I think I've spent so much time recently, reading up on their history.
It's like when you know in movies when they research the serial killer, they just get into his mind.
Yeah,
that's what I feel like I'm like with MiBR.
Yeah, mate, I am. I'm full fucking. Sorry, just bang my monitor there. I'm full fucking manhunter with it. Like I can like close my eyes and just picture Fallen like typing up some bullshit resignation for no reasons and stuff like. It's mental, mate. So I don't even consider this speculation at this point. The reality
that is a ridiculous statement.
I don't.
Because it is pure
I'm in his head. I'm in his head. I
know,
mate.
but it is speculation.
No, I'm not having it, mate. I'm not having it. It's I absolutely. This is the gospel. It's as if Fallen was sat here saying it himself. Like he's literally right, and that he honestly believes that by the organization going over his head and making these changes, sort of without getting his blessing, that he had to publicly for his fans, because that's more important. They're not MiBR fans. Remember, they're fans of them. They're fans of those players. They're fans of him, Fallen, the almighty Fallen, the godfather of Brazilian CS. So he is literally just come out and gone, listen, guys, I don't agree with this. Fuck MiBR. Like, he feels that he has to do this. And friends till the end. Well, these guys are all in for a shock, because I think Fallen, he's not stepping down to just go be by himself. I reckon those boys are going to try and get an org together and continue the fucking party that's been going on in their minds for the past 2 years, where they are one of the most highly paid teams in World Counter-Strike, yet they don't win. They don't behave properly. They don't do good media or PR. I mean, unless you think fucking taking phone calls with Bolsonaro's a good idea in the current fucking climate, while you're doing like, we at MiBR stand for diversity and inclusiveness. So Bolsonaro saying, well, if my son was gay, you don't want to know what I'd do. Like, yeah, brilliant. This is perfect. Like, this synergistic,
just taking notes.
Yeah, this synergistic relationship that you've got going on. Meanwhile, Fallen's just going to Bolsonaro. Can you do something for tax breaks for esports players? Like, it's, again, all about that paper. It's a fucking joke what these guys have been allowed to get away with. They are literally a disgrace. Like, what they've done to the MiBR brand as well. Like, if I was the org, I'll be talking to lawyers. Can I sue these cunts? Because you had a fucking product that was worth something, and then you shared it with these guys. Because let's be real, they're amazing players, great reputation, put Brazilian CS on the map. MiBR did it first by giving that brand over to them. It's like this legacy. It's like a resurgence of a dynastic thing. So you're essentially, by buying that brand and sharing some of its shine with them, this should have been a synergistic relationship that worked. Instead, they took that brand, they have rendered it absolutely fucking worthless. Like, do any Brazilian players want to play for MiBR? Yeah, would anyone want to play for MiBR now? Would anyone? Regardless of whether or not those players are there. You are already a laughing stock before you get in the door. Already, it's a waste of time. It cannot be salvaged at this point. They need to shelve that brand, bring back Immortals as a CS brand, and just forget about it. MiBR was the worst investment of all time. And I actually do feel a little bit of sympathy because, yes, rank incompetence from the management. Yes, weakness from the management. Yes, they should have been putting these players in their fucking place, but there wasn't an adult in the room to stop them because who was in charge of it? Dead. Lifelong friends and co-workers and co-investors and co-owner of teams that you're funding. Yeah, it's a nightmare. Yeah, you can't even extricate yourself from all of the businesses you got into with this brand. So it's terrible management, but I do feel sorry for Immortals because they've been left with a fucking lemon. MiBR is absolutely worthless at this point, and these players, this before we get into the Gowles thing, these players have mugged them off right at the end. Wouldn't he, like, Fallen, not even sticking around to rebuild a team? It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. His statement as well, like, when he went out, he said something like, I communicate my dissatisfaction to MiBR regarding the decision to completely overhaul the lineup I chose to play for.
Go and pay him the Fallen. No problem, mate.
Are you paying their fucking salary, are you, mate? Nah, you're not, right? We enter as a team, and as a team we will leave. As we follow day after day, side by side, motivated by the real passion for playing. Yeah, you look really passionate when you're losing to the 82nd team in the world, and you can't even get in a double figures, you washed up cunt. Real passion, that, like. Every morning we wake up imbued with the mission of overcoming ourselves and seeking to be better. That the absolute nerve, the absolute nerve to write that you have been trying to be better and that you're motivated for self-improvement. put it this way, if I introduced you to the Fallen from 2016, it was with some weird fucked up time anomaly, like an episode of Star Trek, he would hate you, Fallen.
Oh, he would the taste out of his mouth.
Yeah, he would hate what you have become. You have become like some slovenly, fucking decadent, lazy, greedy, like shadow of yourself. In fact, he'd probably say, like, what do I have to do to not become that version of me? What do I have to do? And you can't see it because you're surrounded by yes men and sycophants, and the MiBR management let you do your thing because, ooh, they add on so much viewership. Ooh, all of it. Mate, you've been living in a fucking bubble, but you're about to find out that your stock is at an all-time low, mate. That reputation you've been cruising by on for 2 years, no one gives a fuck. Not the fans, certainly no org out there in World Counter-Strike. You're going to be playing for absolute bums in Tier 2, and you won't be doing it with your homies. You're going to be doing it with total strangers. So buckle up, because you're going to get found the fuck out. That's my rant over.
Yeah, basically, again, ties into the NiKo thing. Imagine having the fucking gall to tell your employer after you have literally failed at a level I've never seen. Even Virtus Pro at the end, go look at the results. They were really bad. They weren't as bad as this with the original 5 lineup. Like, they never went to this level. They just weren't Tier 1, and then they were like having trouble at Tier 2. This is outrageous. The idea you can turn to your employer, who's basically given you 1,000,000 chances and paid you massively over market value the whole time, and at the end you can just say, how dare you kick the players without my permission? You don't own the org, you fucking moron. You're a player. You're literally a contractor who works for that company. Do you even have equity? You have no say whatsoever, and you should have no say, because your say means fuck all if that's what it was that was all these recruitments. And I agree. You know what? I've always thought with someone like Fallen, if they just admitted, you know what, yeah, I'm sort of beyond my peak at the moment, but, you know, I've been having motivation issues, or, you know what, I'm struggling with my form, etc. I'd have sympathy, right? I wouldn't have sympathy for how much you get paid. I'd say, listen, you better get into a smaller team because this isn't the place for you. But the idea that you then want to literally turn around and spin the angle of, like, every day I wake up and try and overcome myself. Well, you know what? Can we see that Fallen? Because he wins every fucking day, you daft twat. That guy sounds amazing at Counter-Strike. He's holding you down like a motherfucker. Like, you're literally doing movie speeches as you then go out and play online cops where, like, my fucking cousin and a sheep beat your ass in a 2v5. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'll say this comment specifically because I know that Paul and Fur claim this is a big deal. Do you have no honor? Sir, do you have no honor? Because the way you are behaving is dishonorable. You have brought dishonor to your country, to the organization, to what your team represents. Your legacy is a fucking joke. The saddest thing is, 10 years from now, I'm going to be getting hate like I do about existence now. When I tell people you were actually good players, when I tell people you're one of the greatest cores ever, that you were legends, etc., because people are just going to remember these last 2 years and go, no, but I think you fucking shit. That was just because CS wasn't advanced then. Well, just because, you know, like, coaches hadn't taken, like, that's what every fan will be telling me. And I'll have to then take all the shit from fans that I don't know anything because I'm defending you when you weren't a dickhead. This is so unreal. Like, I can't think what more they could do at this point in time. Between that, basically turning on their own org, who has been, I would say, unprofessionally loyal. I actually think they literally, I'm going to say it right now, I think the MiBR, the org brought some dishonor upon CS with the way that they let those guys skate on things, which if that was an NA team, you would have fired half the team twice over. And some of them would have literally probably never worked for you again. So the idea that, like, these guys think that they're going to go to another org. Listen, there's plenty of con men out there in the world, and I hope Fallen meets fucking all of them and gets taken for a nice little ride by them, because they're the only people that are going to pay you that salary. There's not a single big org in the world would want that core right now, especially because you've implied you can't change the lineup. That is so stupid. You've painted yourself into a corner.
So we need to take a break there. So yeah, anyway, we continue talking about it, guys, for the people that are live.
Twitch server died, so watch the VOD.
Twitch server died, so you'll have to watch the VOD, but don't worry, I think all of that's staying in. But anyway, then comes the next part, the most outrageous part, Duncan, the most, like, unbelievable aspect. Right, so if you know Gaules, and obviously if you follow Brazilian Counter-Strike, you know Gaules he's a really big streamer, streams all the games, he's the official Portuguese language broadcaster for all the big TOs. Huge numbers, huge viewership. And so what he has done has always been a fan of MiBR. He himself has ties to MiBR. Used to represent MiBR himself. I think he was a coach there as well. So absolutely has all this history and pedigree with it. And he was the guy that when he believed that MiBR had been cheated out of a game against Chaos, he was the guy that like lit the torch paper and really pushed it. And really, really made it so that those players felt the pressure. Well, anyway, when Dead got caught cheating, which, by the way, for Gowles to be sort of consistent, he would have to be outraged at Dead's cheating. He wasn't. He put out a tweet saying, finding out about Dead cheating is like being a father and finding out your son's done something disappointing, right? So he was really forgiving and more sad than he was condemning. Didn't give Leaf any of that benefit of the doubt. But then in his stream, he said, he thinks one of the reasons that MiBR have all of these problems is that the players have just hijacked the brand. That was what he said, or kidnapped, rather, was the term he used. And there wasn't anyone to control them. So that's like the most astute, prescient thing that Gowles has probably ever said. Probably the smartest words that have ever come tumbling out of his mouth. Because I think even he realized, like, yeah, this type of behavior is indefensible. So as a result of that, Dead and KNG on Twitter had the audacity to say Gowles had set his fan base on them. So the irony of MiBR players talking about leveraging a fan base to make someone's life a misery. They were saying, yeah, everyone's been picking on Fur. Fur, a man who like can't stop having racist and homophobic stuff coming tumbling out of his mouth when he's streaming. Like, loads of sympathy for that guy. But yeah, they actually turned on Gowles in some sort of demented Brazilian civil war. It's one of the most outrageous things I've ever seen. Like, they seem so delusional that they don't understand that, like, he has been one of their biggest proponents.
What I don't get as well is, remember, one of the things that for some reason is considered cool in Brazil, I guess it's sort of machismo, I get it in a way, is they always like to flex. Remember, they were the ones who brought this up first. It was never actually European fans, because most European fans didn't know fucking anything about Brazil except like beaches and fucking soccer. They were the ones who always flex that, like, even when they're definitely not and they come from a rich family, they always flex like, I'm from the streets and the hood, man, and like, I live the life you don't understand. Like, you ain't about this. Like, they're all about that shit, right? Well, here's the thing I don't get. Just like I said before, they love to, like, Fur loves to spam the word honor, despite the fact he doesn't seem to live his life by it whatsoever or have a code of honor. Similarly, as far as I know, one of the number one things within all communities is fucking loyalty. It's the idea, you've probably heard it, your ride or die. They're the people you came up with. They are your brothers. You are always with them. Even if you have a disagreement with them, you can fight with each other, but you never turn against them publicly. You never fuck with them. You never ruin them. Dude, they don't even have loyalty to each other. It's so insane. They have no ride or dies. I agree with you. I don't even think Fallen did it really because he was like, oh, I can't play without Taco and that. I think he just thought, right, like, knowing Fallen, he's just a cynical cunt. I think he just thought, right, this is the best way. What I'll do is I'll get all the plaudits for seeming like I have. And also, yeah, you're right, KNG's nipped my thunder there. I'm supposed to be the one who does the big, like, moral grandstanding, even though, again, literally proven cheater many times over, zero honor. I can get all the credit as though I did it because I'm a hero and put my job on the line. But really, I want to go somewhere else and do something else anyway. Yeah, it could be that. I could totally believe it. Because I can't, unfortunately, take it at face value that these people really believe what they're saying. I mean, the KNG line to that guy is just like, KNG, mate. Listen, people can joke that I should delete Twitter. Just look how many followers I have. It is undeniable that my Twitter has been an enormous success. Like, put it this way, there are many pro players who don't have as many Twitter followers as me. Like, that's not a joke. I didn't make that up. I didn't create that. So what I would say is this, KNG, this is a real statement, mate. You're one of the only players I've ever seen whose career I think would literally be 10 times more successful if you delete Twitter even now. It's still not too late. Even today, you could delete it and you will have 10 times more success. Because every time you tweet, I just see your fucking stonks just going down, my G. Like, they're never coming back either. It's mental.
So,
like, stupider reading your comments, KNG. Like, just because I have to, like, process them in my brain, and in doing so, you break the logic centers of my brain.
So what do you think in terms of the move overall, what it means for MiBR and what it means for these players? I mean, I think the worst thing they could do to themselves, honestly, is continue
don't stay
playing with
together.
each
Come
other.
on, don't stay together. Like, as I basically said to Taco there, because remember, he's one of the only ones who's actually gone and like basically made something of himself when they kicked him. Loyal fuckers. So when they kicked him and he went off, and because obviously they had to have Stewie 2K, that worked out great. So when they kicked him, he went to Team Liquid. People forget he was doing a pretty good job in that Team Liquid team. Like, he was the experienced guy with a load of inexperienced star fraggers. He was the glue that held them together. He was the one who didn't choke in the finals. Like, he wasn't ever a really top player. Obviously, it's never been his shit, is it? He's like, put it this way, in soccer, he's like one of those slow defenders, but who knows the defensive scheme and just does his job. And the idea is, it's that he doesn't like be a liability that makes you win the game. He doesn't fuck up and score an own goal. That's what it is. So even though I do think he was playing pretty bad recently, they all were. It was a fucking mess of a team.
Yep.
Hey, I could actually see going to another team and potentially do so. I don't know what relationship he'd have, but put it this way, we know he can speak English. He is actually one of the more friendly guys out of them. Like, he seems to socialize with people. I could see him going to like an NA team or something, being the fifth. The problem is, they've just gone so gung-ho on the whole like Brazilian thing. I get the feeling, they're going to just try and make another Brazilian team. So I think that is the worst move any of them could make. Like, KNG, again, if you just stop tweeting, there's loads of teams you could be in, mate. Like, you're just such a skilled player. You could even be in Fury if they want. Like, maybe they want to upgrade Henny to you. I don't know why the fuck they do that right now. Like, that's like bringing a fucking time bomb inside the room that you can't defuse. But I've seen stranger things happen. So you could still have a great career. I personally don't think Fur should even play anymore. And I very rarely ever say that. But remember, he himself has constantly joked and implied like he doesn't really give a fuck about CS anymore. Okay, do it for a job then. But like, don't stick with, put it this way, if the others do care and you stick with them and you don't care, I also consider that like the behavior of a bad teammate. Like, you all have to be on the, if you're all selling out, you all have to be on the same page. One of you can't do that. Because at the end of the day, like, you're fucking over your bro then, aren't you? If they really are the people you care about, what, you're just going to mail it in and go, well, because I'm technically better in stats. That's whack, mate. Come on. Don't do that.
So I'll tell you something as well, like, because obviously
by the way, I could definitely see the world, though, where NiKo, to connect the two stories, is so brain dead that he won't take Alexi B, MSL, Carrigan, but he will take washed up Fallen, because that's the sort of mad narcissist NiKo is.
It'd be interesting. I mean, like, Fallen to face, you're right. That's like some sort of demented move. I could actually.
It could happen, though. That's a 2020 move right there.
Yeah, that is for sure. But look, I want to just tell you a story as well, like, you know, because we've been doing some self-indulgent bits on the show, and then we're going to segue into the rest of the news. But obviously, not only did I, you know, put out a video about the Brazilian coaching scene, I wrote an article as well, obviously saying about MiBR's legacy and how they'd basically ruined it, pretty much all the stuff that I just said here on the show. And so obviously, you can imagine the abuse I've been receiving for the you know, past like week or so. So I had this tweet sent at me, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because some guy on Reddit like lost his mind and tried to make out that I was like, you know, fucking trying to make out that I was being racist to Brazilians, because that's the go-to thing. I mean, you'll even notice this is happening in football right now with Neymar. No evidence to substantiate any of the claims, but yeah, basically like. So I was getting spammed with abuse. So this guy sent me this tweet, right? So you can have a look here. And, right, he said, it's funny how you pretend to know shit and rely on Brazilian content to stay relevant. Yeah, go ahead and block me, you fat fuck. This is how everyone sees you. And then he'd gone and made a thread on HLTV that was called just Richard Lewis. Just basically him ranting some long screed about how, you know, I'm irrelevant to the scene, but I'm living in this fucking dickhead's head rent free. And then he said, congrats for being a golden over 2 ranked scrub. I mean, I don't even play CS anymore.
Dude, I know what he's done there.
Yeah.
You know, they all, first of all, they all think we're all American, but they also blur me and you. So obviously, famously, I had like the golden over 2 rank when I did that stream with Anders and it came up. So he's obviously, he's blurred the two again. He thinks I'm you.
So anyway, right.
Part, though.
So I replied to that guy because he was called Envy House, right? Now that's a reference to, you know, Fallout New Vegas, and House, you know, is the sort of, you know, oligarch, tech oligarch wizard that has somehow kept the Vegas Strip safe from the bombs and is sort of running his own little empire there as a machine while his withered body is sort of kept artificially alive. I can understand actually why MiBR fans would gravitate towards this. It's like essentially what Fallen's been doing, but whatever. So anyway, I replied by saying, and you'll see why this is relevant. I said, I think it's hilarious that Brazilian accounts like yours are named after references to games your dog shit PC can just about play. By the way, speaking of relevance, I made more money in the time it took me to type this tweet than you will in a month, but you've wrecked me, buddy. So there is this guy on Reddit called Purely Fire. He should be called Purely Moron. He is. He did this. I'll show you.
I saw, by the way, that someone implied he was an alt of another famous troll on that forum.
The Radiant Sun. Yeah,
that would make a lot of sense if you know what's. Put it this way: if it wasn't for the fact we don't generally like to give these people attention because they are deeply unwell. I'm not joking at all, or I'm taking that lightly. They are deeply unwell people. We could do a whole, maybe we'll do one for the 200th episode. We could just do an episode about the 8 people that basically obsessively posted about us, for 5 years.
The reason I'm bringing up this guy is because I'm hoping he's about to learn a lesson here now, right? He replied in the post about by the numbers. He said, "Put this tweet back up if you have the balls." Right, put this tweet back up if you have the balls. Like,
this is mental.
Yeah, put this tweet back up
so
if you have the balls. So he said, why delete it, coward? It's so you can go on the next episode of your podcast and play it off like you don't have a predisposed hatred of one of the largest communities in the scene. Afraid Peacemaker might not continue being a super nice guy to you if he knew about the shit you'd willingly put out to the public. And then he followed up saying, there's nothing wrong with the response. Keep it up on your page. So on and on and on he goes. He can't explain why it's racist. It's not racist. It's not xenophobic in any way, shape, or form. He can't explain why. He's mad triggered about it. But here's the thing, Purely Fire from fucking Reddit, right? I'll say what the fuck I want on my platform, and you're about to learn a valuable lesson here. Why did I delete it? Because what's the point in trying to argue with Brazilian fanboys who were so cooked that they even worship players that disrespect the Brazilian CS heritage, disrespect all their fans, disrespect the biggest fucking streamer in the scene, disrespect their employers. They think nothing of you, right? But that's fine. If you want to go along with the fucking hero worship, you do it. But what? Imagine thinking I'm afraid. Imagine thinking I'm afraid. So here's what I'm going to say, mate. Your name's garbage now. You've just made a fucking fool of yourself, an absolute fool, right? You then went and tried to spam a thread on the subreddit of the deleted tweet, right? You kept trying to submit it. Richard Lewis deleted tweet. Stop him! Stop him saying things on Twitter! Reddit mods! Stop him! Stop him saying the things! You can't stop me saying the things, you fucking rat. Don't you understand? You're nothing. You're nothing. I have a platform. I can bang on you on my platform. I can bang on anything I want. My job is giving my opinions now. You don't get to fucking stop it. So there you go. Oh, I'm a coward, am I? I'm scared of the cancel. Come and cancel me for fucking. You try and make a credible argument to say having a bad PC is some sort of racial component to it. I've never heard such fucking gibberish. There was another guy as well, actually, that tried to fucking submit it to Reddit. Unfortunately, I don't have his name to hand, but there was another Brazilian poster on that subreddit. By the way, I know the NV House account is yours, Purely Fire, and you haven't even got the sack to admit you go, I would never post on HLTV, me, never in my life. No, but you'll spam Reddit all day trying to make out I'm racist because I've said someone has a fucking bad PC. You're a fucking clown. Purely Fire on Reddit. Everyone's going to see your name now. Everyone's going to know what a little dickhead you are. Everyone's going to look at your fucking history. Mate, you should be embarrassed. You're one of these fucking fanboy accounts that just spam shit all fucking day, spamming about KNG, spamming about Cold Zero, spamming about the MiBR sports psychologist who we're going to talk about in just a second for comedic value.
It never ends. Bloody hell's not more, is there?
Oh yeah, there's more.
I didn't know about this guy. Come on.
So there you go, mate. There it is. There it is permanently. There's the tweet. I'll out myself. Come and cancel me, dickhead. See how you like it, though? Every time you fucking stick your head over the parapet, people pointing out what a fucking mug you are. Right? Fucking idiot. So anyway, yeah, the MiBR.
I hadn't heard this one, actually. This one passed me by somehow.
Oh, so the MiBR sports psychologist, mate. So I told a story about it last night. I probably should repeat it here. For posterity, just in case people didn't watch yesterday's stream. The VOD's still up. If you want to go watch it, you can. But basically, one of the fellas who runs Epicenter, a chap called Dimitri, was talking about how big arseholes the Brazilian players were when they went to Epicenter back when they were SK Gaming. And I'll give you the long and the short. I'll paraphrase it, but essentially, what
when they won
did,
the event, by the way, I'm pretty sure it's the year you're referring to, 2017.
Well, so what happened was first they gave Epicenter the runaround by saying, "Oh yeah, don't worry, Phelps is going to come and he's going to play and all of this." And then when they got there, they turned up with like bolts or something, and they hadn't even prepared
yes,
the
that's
roster.
True. They won the event with bolts.
Yeah. And there was all this bullshit about like, oh, they're playing. He's having to wear his Immortals jersey and not then anyway. So they had loads of stuff to sort out at Epicenter. Also, Fur's girlfriend was there, just in the team when they went to pick up what they thought was the players. It was Fur and Fur's girlfriend were there. But anyway, so the bottom line is right. There was this German. The way he described it is brilliant. He said German-looking man in the hotel lobby who was demanding like to see Epicenter staff. And what had happened was it was the sports psychologist, and he'd been told like that.
So this is when they were in SK, by the way, for people. Yeah.
They'd been told that he was going to meet with the staff. Right, he was, and they were expecting him, but they hadn't said that the sports psychologist was going with them. So anyway, every time the sports psychologist was there, the Fallen, all the Brazilian players, they pretended they couldn't speak English, and obviously he didn't speak a word of Portuguese.
Cool guys, right?
Yeah. So when Dimitri said like, well, who's the point of contact for the team? Because Dead was still in LA, he didn't go. They said, oh, yeah, talk to the sports psychologist. He didn't know what the fuck was going on. So in the end, he just went home and on stage in the final, instead of a manager, Fur's girlfriend was just sat there. And so anyway, so Dimitri told that story. I'm just putting out there. But then the sports psychologist they had an MiBR fucking came out and basically said like, yeah, listen, I am available for children's parties. And,
actually, now I remember, because actually I remember I even commented in like this thread where it was sort of like, might leave that off my resume.
Yeah. Like, why would you even bring it up, mate?
I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
You really nailed those fucking lunatics, didn't you? You really cured their problems. Like, yeah, maybe don't bring it up. Like, I'd just leave it 6 months and then try and get another job or something. Absolutely insane, isn't it? Like, don't get me wrong. He had an impossible job, mate.
I know, but of all the things to like put on your resume,
I know.
Sports psychologist, MiBR, 2019 to 2020. It's like,
yeah.
You sure the years are right there? Yep. That was me.
I know.
Can I just know your social security number so I make sure we never hire you under any capacity? Give me a break. Also, by the way, if people aren't getting it with that story, listen, I know if you imagine it's a TV show, that's a hilarious story about them like dicking the guy off and saying
yeah.
As actual people who work for a company, they are enormous assholes as human beings. Like, that is utterly unacceptable.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like, yeah, it's hilarious within the context that you can't believe it's happening. But yeah, when you analyze it on the surface of like professional conduct, yeah, it's ridiculous. So anyway, let's get on to the next story. So we've been talking about, has-beens and people like that. So now we get to Dignitas. That's a bit mean, isn't it? Whatever. You were going to say it if I didn't. You would have made the
washed up as well. Come on, there's more check stealers.
Well, but I don't understand what Dignitas thought was going, like what this was meant to be, because, right, Dignitas obviously picked up the old NIP guys. They did a reunion with Hallzerk in place of Fiflaren, but Fiflaren was the coach. So you had Get Right, Xizt, Freiburg, Forest, Hallzerk, Fiflaren as coach. And it's like, listen, when you commit to that idea, like, I thought they were just doing it just to essentially get people to come back, all the people who love it, you know, because Dignitas have been out in the wilderness for a while, right? So you get all of the people to come back. They're loving the org again, loving the brand. You know, it's all got like new ownership and everything. And you know, you can't expect these guys to actually go out and win tournaments. Like, I mean, I know they're saying in interviews their goal is to win tournaments. I mean, obviously that's the goal. But in reality, if you're just a, you know, even a passive consumer of CS, you know, this isn't really a relevant team on a world level. Lots of fun to watch, super cool guys, super great legacies, but at the end of the day, they're never going to be a top tier team ever again. So I was really surprised to sort of see it announced by Dignitas that we're cutting Xizt and we're cutting Get Right. Obviously, Get Right, arguably the biggest brand that they have on there, and remember, this is essentially a branding exercise. So they cut him. I think he said it was due to his health problems had come back. So I guess that's fair enough. If it isn't,
decent grounds at least to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if he hasn't been playing well because his health is bad, that's one thing. But also as well, I mean, if his health is bad and he needs time off, you know, you bench, you bench him. But I mean, Xizt hadn't been playing well anyway, so you know, I mean, makes sense in that.
I would challenge anyone, just go and look at his HLTV page. I'm not a guy who worships stats, but like, put it this way: if you can make a video explaining these stats away, you'll be the fucking greatest analyst who ever lived.
Yeah. So anyway, I was just really surprised about this because, like I say, I thought the team was basically about saying, "Hey, remember Nip? Remember the good Nip before the management took over and skanked all the players?" Like, I thought it was, I thought that was the exercise. But now, Dignitas in a statement said, and I'll read it for you. They said, it's with a heavy heart we announced Get Right and Xizt have been benched from our team starting roster. Our recent results have not lived up to our fans' expectations. I don't think the fans have the expectations you do. And after discussing with all of our players, we agreed this is the correct step moving forward. We will continue to support Get Right and Xizt while working through this transition as they take the next steps in their iconic careers. We will have news early next week about the direction of our team while we start the search for 2 new players. So, I mean, what do you make of this? I mean, I just don't understand what they're going for here.
Yeah, that's the thing that puzzles me, because what it implies is that they've had a moment of lucidity, decided they're a competitive organization trying to win tournaments and do well, like you're saying, and then thought, right, what steps should we take to go ahead and do this? Which is like, well, then why did he build the team in the first place? Because as you said, the whole purpose of this was the joke that I've made about Nip back in the day. They're the best Nip tribute band. They're not as good as Nip because they're not the old Nip. They're the washed up versions. But you know what? They know the tracks. They do the numbers, same characters. So really, at that point, you're only watching it in the way that people go and watch like fucking Rocky Horror Show or whatever. It's like you've already seen the show before. You just do it because it's a fun thing for you, isn't it? It's not supposed to be for like new fans. Like, it's a thing that's established its niche. So I agree with you, because the most bizarre thing is, I will say this, unlike some of the other people we've talked about, I'm not joking, I have a very good bullshit meter. I genuinely believe those players did think this was going to work. They really, it's one of the only flaws I'll say about that group of players, is that they really do seem to think that like something went wrong in the Matrix in about late 2014, early 2015, and they should have always stayed on top, but somehow they fell, and they even blame obviously all the Nip things on why Flaren had to retire and his level went down. So they have this sort of like really weird conspiracy theory, like revisionist history as to what happened. And so they really did think, if we got it back together now though, and we didn't have the pressure and it wasn't the Nip org, and we could start over, and you know what, we'd start at a lower level, and we bring in this young talent. I think they really did believe it was going to work. But the problem is, like, that's where you've got our friends that just lean in and go, it isn't. Listen, if you're doing it cynically for the money, fine. Get the last go around. In fact, that's the one thing we always said on this show. These are the guys who won all the tournaments when first place was 20K and your salary was 1,000. So I don't begrudge those guys getting a real round of real salaries for an org that has money and investment, and finally getting paid sort of for what they did in the past, as much as that's not really a concept that shouldn't really exist, but whatever. It's almost like some fucked up way of the universe evening things out. You know what? The legendary guys still get some money. But the problem is, the idea this was going to be a real competitive team, it wasn't. This is another one of those teams like Cloud9, where I kept telling people in Flashpoint the whole time, listen, I want people to succeed. Do you think I don't want Get Right and Forest to be in the league that I work for, but I don't as a team? Like, they're going to be terrible. I told people they're never even going to get out of groups. They might fucking win the tournament, because people were trying to tell me internally, like, what if they get it together though and they have some of the old men? It's like, shut the fuck up. Listen, I do that part of the game. You just fucking push buttons or whatever. So, like, in that scenario, like, I agree with you, because the biggest problem is if you kick Get Right, it better be an actual good player coming in, because otherwise you did lose Get Right's market in respect. So what I would say is this: who the fuck is available? Like, presumably none of the NIP players, presumably none of the Fnatic players. So what, you're now going dumpster diving for like ex-Gamer Legion players, or you're trying to get what, new players that no one's heard of? Like, I don't even know what direction makes sense here. Like, to me, I'm going to guess they're just going to get some Swedish or Norwegian players. It's probably going to be young up-and-comers or something. But even then, surely inevitably, it's just going to be another kick. Like, surely Freiburg's next if it keeps going badly. Like, it's just going to be, it's going to be a house of dominoes, especially because the only reason you ever had any safety was when you did stay together. When you start chopping it up again, you know this for NIP, eventually you will be the next one on the chopping block, unless you just play it exceptionally better than you have recently.
Yeah. It's a weird one, and sort of coincidentally at the same time, I have no idea if these two things are linked, but NIP...
I thought about this when I saw this as well, mate.
Yeah,
too suspicious.
Because of the timing, but
yeah,
NIP have put Nawwk on medical leave and threats having to step in and play in the remaining matches for NIP in the ESL Pro League Season 12, so... And that means he's going to play against FaZe and Fnatic. And obviously, we know NIP have turned a corner recently. They've been playing particularly well, certainly a lot higher than a standard we expected them to. They've actually had it together. And suddenly, Nawwk is now going to be off with medical leave. And I'm also just going to say this. I think it is absolutely whack as fuck, to use one of your phrases, Duncan, that people are saying the one thing you can't speculate about in esports is whether or not an injury or an illness is genuine. Because I'm from real sports. I used to be a sports reporter. So I'll tell you, and Sam can back this up. Ryan fucking Giggs, every time there was a fucking Welsh game that came, me knee, me leg, me big toe, you know, he should have had like 150 fucking caps for Wales. But he didn't, because he would always suddenly get like these weird little knocks and niggles before a game. Now, at no point was it ever considered bad form if you were a fan to turn around and go, yeah, well, he's lying, isn't he? Or Manchester United are lying, so he doesn't have to go and play for Wales. Because obviously, when you're an international club, they're not paying you salary. You know, if you get injured in an international game and you're out for 6 weeks of league play off the result, it's the team that's paying his salary who get fucked over. So international managers and club managers are very often at odds with what they want in football. So I never heard that argument once. He's faking, isn't he? I never heard anyone go, well, it's really disrespectful to imply someone would lie. Like, having a sick day is not a fucking thing in British culture. Like, you know, I'm just going on the sick, like, can't be arsed. Like, people do it. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happened here, but I am saying there was, I can't remember which journalist it was from HLTV, but a journalist just said, like, this is a bit strange because he's on medical leave for exhaustion, but if you look at how much they've been playing, it's actually not that much, and they've just had a break. So this is strange. And this went on Reddit, and people were saying that journalist was a piece of shit for even speculating about it. I don't buy that at all. Like,
mate, the same people literally, I'm not joking, literally speculate about my learning disorder and mental health. These people are scum. Like, if the fans are allowed to do that, we're certainly allowed to ask. Because notice Richard didn't say that he doesn't have medical exhaustion or burnout. What he's suggesting is that it's maybe the pretext, you know, like maybe he doesn't want to play like certain other players in the scene. And so it's a way to conveniently allow you to not be questioned when you step down, ride out the rest of your contract, secure the transfer to the other team. And then after that, also, by the way, the major was just fucking cancelled. It's the best time ever to go and say you got the exhaustion, right? There's nothing to play for. It would just make perfect sense. He's not saying he knows it for a fact. So I actually think that's ridiculous to say he can't speculate about that. Listen, it'd be one thing if he said he's faking it. Like you were talking about Ryan Giggs there, but he's not actually even saying that. He's just saying like that alone doesn't seem like the only driving factor, which I think is a reasonable speculation to make. I even say my gut tells me there's something to that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's entirely possible. I mean, I'll ask you what you think of the move. I'll in a second. I'll just wrap it up by saying, like, in addition to your point, I think like what people have quickly realized is that first of all, it's not necessarily a lie of sorts if you put someone on sick leave for exhaustion, or if somebody tells you they're exhausted or they're tired or they don't want to do it anymore or they're burnt out. There's a lot going on here, because it's like, have you seen a doctor? Have you got a medical note? Should you need to? If you're telling your employer, I'm burnt out, I'm fucking exhausted, I need some time off. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a lie per se. Even if you say it, it could be something you're genuinely feeling. But in the same way, I've seen a lot of players say like, I'm fucking burnt out, me. And they get released, and then I'm going into a team where it's actually a bigger challenge and more work and more pressure than it was just 3 weeks prior when I was crying off work. Like, so I don't always buy it, mate. And I think people should be allowed to speculate. I think people should be allowed to say maybe this player's having a lend, because of this weird culture that they're trying to push. People like the CSPPA, people like Astralis, they are creating the one potential lie that you're not allowed to speculate about, so they can get all of their moves done, so players can hold out contracts in peace.
Which also then means it will be used constantly.
Exactly.
For obvious reasons.
Mate, it's no coincidence. It's no coincidence that, all of a sudden burnouts everywhere. At the same time, the CSPPA are talking about the problems of burnout in World Counter-Strike. It's like, guys, like, we're not even traveling anymore. Like, where was this big debate about burnout when motherfuckers played like 6 tournaments on fucking 4 continents in 53 days or whatever it was at the end of 2019? Not a single word. But suddenly, people are signing longer and longer and longer contracts, right? With bigger and bigger and bigger buyouts. And now burnout is like the hot topic. That's not a coincidence, guys. I've been around the game too long. Now, I'm saying some of these players probably are burnt out. I'm even the guy who wrote the article that basically said, yeah, look what they did to Astralis, look what they did to these players. So I'm obviously an advocate for that, but some of these players ain't burnt out at all, mate. And you can't make an argument for it. You can't make an argument for it unless their training is basically playing CS for 12-hour shifts while someone fucking, stokes hot coals under the fucking table so they're just sweating constantly. There's no argument for it. There's no argument for it. You're playing less CS and you're traveling less. So why are you burnt out now?
I think the CSPP angle also makes me very suspicious, because put it this way, think about this. After what you have seen publicly from the CSPPA and how they deal, including how they dealt with Astralis and those players, would you put it beyond them to say to someone like ESL, if we can't get these tournament formats sorted out, be a shame if a bunch of the players were to have to go on medical sick leave and not be able to play?
Yep.
That's the way these guys deal with these things.
Yeah.
Like, they don't just come straight out. They do it in this like snitch mode fucking way like that, where it's like so shady how you do it. So sorry, I don't put it past people. Remember, guys, take stock for a second. We're in a scene where probably like 50 guys are about to be banned for cheating and not reporting it to Valve or any of their teammates for half a decade. What the fuck is that? So you're going to then tell me, but a player would never lie when he has the perfect lie that no one can possibly criticize or prove one way or the other without being a doctor and examining it. Beggars belief that people continue. It's like the people about that NiKo topic. There was people doing that thing again, Richard, where, because NiKo was like, well, this isn't true. They were like, no, it's not true because NiKo said it's like, well, get the fuck out. Are you not aware lies exist? It's like I'm watching the movie The Invention of Lying. Like, you guys just don't think it's possible. Well, he said it's true, though. It's like, that's not even step one of figuring out whether it's right, you fucking idiot.
So I'll bring that up as well. We'll segue into that as a bit of news. Obviously, we're now past the point of the sort of the cutoff for a confession of having
We've never talked about that, by the way. Did we ever talk about that aspect? Because one thing, I've never found your take on it. I'm personally, that's one area I would have thought you'd be on the same side as me, mate. Yeah. Why do they get a confession period if their evidence is already locked away? We're already going to go through the evidence, and you've punished other people without a confession period. Why do they get a chance to reduce their sentence?
So because the reason why ESIC went ahead with that is a sort of philosophy is because you're going through 25,000 demos, potentially more now. right? Like, so what they're saying is, if you essentially come forward without us having to dig through all those demos and find it and put the record because each person who is going to be found guilty by ESIC, it's like they've got their own separate dossier on them. They have to take the footage out, how many instances they did it, then they have to sort of apply that standard to what previous bans they've issued, so it's all in line, so it can't be argued it's unfair. They have to create an appeals process for each of these people. So basically what they're saying is, if you make our life easier, we'll go a little bit easier on you in the sentencing, which is something that is the operating standard within criminal courts.
Yeah, but they didn't give that precedent to the other people.
Okay, but I think from what I understand, it didn't apply to Hunden because he had already outed himself. When he realized it was going to come out, he went to Mikau, who was doing the investigation, and said, "Yeah, I did it here and here, mate." So I think it was already factored in.
Right? Okay.
Yeah,
this should be made more clear then, in my opinion.
Yeah, Dead's issue was it was only initially, if you remember, it was only that one incident on that pistol round until Dead foolishly publicized that he did it at the summit as well, right? And then so the summit took independent action, ESL, Road to Rio took independent action, and then it was the third again.
It was that Hard Legion guy. I forget his
name.
And
the Hard Legion guy was just so Zona or whatever he changed his name to. It was just so egregious. I think he just got hit with the worst ban. Like, didn't he get it with like 2 years or something? So, like at the end of the day, at that juncture, when ESIC realized this was actually a much wider problem, they basically said, listen, you can get some months shaved off your sentence here if you save us some time. And as I said, I think that's a good way to do things. I mean, we've always talked about how, like, with iBuyPower, one of the reasons why the punishment was, you can make an argument for it being as harsh as what it was, is that they lied, and not only lied, actively tried to cover things up and discredit the people with the information.
Yeah, but I'll give you a counterpoint, though. I agree with that as a premise. But first of all, like I say, I hope the same standard is applied to every single person. Otherwise, that is just arbitrarily unfair. And I'll add in, this is the counterpoint. They had years, potentially, to come forwards. So I would even make a cutoff date. If you did something this year and you come forwards, fine. But you know what? If you're one of the people who did it in 2015, why the fuck would you get to cheat for years and then come clean at the end? That's like some Catholic shit of like, listen, as long as you get that confession in before you die, it's all forgiven. That's like some gambling shit.
Yeah, so what my recommendation has been publicly is that if you knew of the bug and used the bug, let's say, prior to 2019 and said nothing about it, I think your sentences should be unbelievably harsher, because you had an opportunity to come forward, make Valve aware, make TOs aware, and you didn't, and you sat on it. That's why people like Starix coming out and saying stuff like in his VK page saying, well, I knew about it since 2016. Mate, wait, you knew about a cheat for 4 years and said nothing and did nothing about it. Like, what sort of culpability are you fucking admitting to there? Do you really want that to be on your record? Have you had to think about this? So desperate for clout and attention, will incriminate himself into knowing about a cheating conspiracy for 4 fucking years. That's how much of idiots those XNRV players are. But anyway, the reality is, I think, like, let's say you used it in 2016, right? And let's say you used it more than once in 2016. So it's inarguably not just something that happened to you once randomly and you were a little bit confoozled and you got on me like you used it more than once. Like, yeah, you should probably be staring into the abyss of like a 5-year ban or something, because you have allowed the scene to be cheated in. You have enabled every cheater that came after you. So that's all on you too, motherfucker. So, yeah, so that's my recommendation. But I do think the people who've confessed to it within that parameter, so let's say you used it in 2019 or 2020 and you confess, I think you should probably get I'm not saying a lot of time shaved off, but that is just the standard of how these things work. Even in sports bans, if you come forward and admit your culpability, cooperate with the investigation, your ban is generally more lenient than sure, if you hadn't. So that's my opinion on that's what I think. But anyway, so we're past that point now. And it didn't have to be a public confession. It could have been just to ESIC directly. So I've seen a lot of people going, well, we're going to see some, how many names are we going to see? I mean, I'm telling you, you're still going to see some big names. Now, I don't know when it's coming out, but ESIC have said it's almost complete. It could be next week when the report drops. We don't know, but basically it's going to be a lot of names, and it's going to be a lot of people, and it's going to be some big names. And some of the people who are currently on suspended leave from their orgs, they're going to get hit with these bans. And what you've got to remember is these bans are for every other ESIC
What do you mean by
member.
that? People who are on suspended leave?
Suspended leave from their orgs, like the people who...
The ones who already admitted it, you mean?
Yeah, so people like Regin. People like Regin.
Oh, yes, okay, that makes sense, right.
Yeah, like, so
he did it, yeah.
Yeah, Regin's admitted he did it in multiple occasions, so he's going to get a higher end ban, based on what we already know about the...
more than his suspension now is like a year or something. So,
yeah, I mean, like, I can tell you about Regin. I just put a video out about it. But basically, yeah, Regin used it on at least 3 occasions. He used it against Havu in the Kalashnikov Cup. He used it against 3D Max in the United Masters League, and he used it against Pro 100 in the GG Rising Stars.
It's mad that they use it for such shit games, though, isn't it? They don't use it for like an EPL game.
4 occasions. Yeah, so I mean, I think the thought process is better not do it in the big leagues in case they've got some way of detecting it. So that even shows another level.
That's dodgy, yeah. It's premeditated.
Yeah, it's premeditated at that point because you're even picking the arena in which you use it, and in a way designed to have the maximum chance of getting away with it. So I mean, for me, Regin's used it on 4 occasions that we know of. That's before we even go into these 25,000 demos. So he's getting a very long ban. I mean, like, he's looking at minimum 2 years. And remember, with ESIC, the way it works, every other ESIC member will mirror these bans. That is an agreement requirement that you follow what ESIC say. So basically, he can't be a coach for anyone in ESL. He can't be a coach for anyone in DreamHack. He can't be a coach for anyone in the ESEA. He can't be a coach for anyone in the Blast. Like, he's done. Like, all of these guys are done, essentially, for the foreseeable future. And we've still got Valve to come. I'll get your thoughts on that in a second. But yeah, what it turned out was, and I know you reacted to this, so I'm sure you got an opinion about it. It turned out that Mr. Dudenhofer, who has like a name of like a fucking 80s teacher, I can't deal with that. Like, I mean, he should be in the Ferris Bueller remake with that name, but whatever. He said that like they've actually found demos going with this bug going back as far as Q3 of 2015. And that's why I say, if you were using it back then and you've said nothing, you have got to get torched. You have got to get torched. You've radically altered the entire online scene potentially with that. What about the teams that got cheated against, that maybe lost that game, that saw a player get kicked, and maybe that player never gets picked up again by like you've changed the future by doing that.
Butterfly effect, yeah.
Yeah, it's like having the fucking sports almanac from fucking Back to the Future 2. And you're fucking Biff Buchanan, just straight murking motherfuckers. Like, it's outrageous. So yeah, these people they've got to go down. Like, they have to.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, as I even said on Twitter, listen, if it ends up being 90% of coaches, listen, first of all, rather than Valve just ban 100%, like, why the fuck should the 10% that are innocent be made to pay? Just ban them all. Ban every single one of them. Because as far as I'm concerned, that is really bad shit. I think that cheating is worse than match fixing. I mean, a fan of mine made this point to me in my AMA. He said match fixing technically only allows you. He said like cheating basically depends which you go on that one, I guess, because I guess it does totally decide the outcome of the game. Whatever, put that one on one side. I've gone down.
No, listen. No, I know what you're saying. Like, at the end of the day, like, generally when you fix a match, like, the only way you can fix a match without having the...
Well, you can't cheat anyone, really, because you agree to do it both of you.
Yeah, right? Generally, the only way you can fix a match without the other people knowing is you have to lose.
Yes.
So you essentially harm your stock.
Exactly.
You harm your stock in the short term for a monetary gain. That's generally how it works. I mean, there's other ways like that you can do it. Like if you look in other sports, for example, like when there was the big Southampton scandal, what they would do is it was like they'd kick a ball out at 11 minutes because
it was a special bet.
Yeah. But that's something else. That's an entirely different beast. But yeah, you harm your stock in the short term to get the monetary gain in the long term. That's how it works. It's like taking a dive in boxing. It's just that's the game. But if you're cheating and cheating to win, and you have a cheat that you can call upon on a whim, you can pervert the course of multiple games in your favor and attain a level of success, both financial and status-wise, that you can't get with match fixing. So I'd be inclined to agree. I think if you're cheating people out of victory, it's worse than essentially gifting someone a victory at the expense of your own reputation. They're both scourges on competitive play. They both have to be stamped out and punished to the fullest extent, but at the end of the day, like, I definitely think the cheating's worse, and like all these people need to take a hard look at themselves. Like, if you're one of these dickheads, like fucking, Dead, for example, you've got the audacity to call Steele out for fucking throwing a meaningless game to make a bit of money on the side when he literally had no salary. Again, there's that famous fucking MiBR player empathy. Thought you could understand what it's like to fucking struggle and chase your dreams. Steele did that for fucking ages. No salary when he was in iBuyPower, by the way, so they tried to make a little bit of money on the side. They did it the wrong way. They fell over to the dark side. They thought they could get away with it because there was lots of motherfuckers doing it.
Different circumstances.
Yeah, totally. Right? Like, you've got the audacity to call him out for having no morals while you're literally cheating to win in the qualifier for the World Championship. Like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Like, the audacity to let that insult tumble out your mouth knowing that you did that. That's a level of fucking delusion and depravity I don't think I see every day. It's mental.
Also, again, like, I brought this up on the past episodes, but like, that really shows you that, listen, with those MiBR players, it is pathological, and with their fans, because their new position is, it was only one round I cheated in the World Cup. Then why did you cheat? It's the stupidest fucking argument of all. It really is like saying I only murdered one person, so do I have to have a life sentence?
Yeah.
It's stupid as fuck. Then why did you do it? The point is the crime is the crime. And the idea that the same people who are the most uncharitable to everyone else are then going to claim I can just cheat one round and can I not have too big a punishment? Fuck that noise. So anyway, what I was going to say is this. For me personally, there's actually an element of schadenfreude with the fact that I know a lot of massive people in CS are going to get fired, and that basically a bunch of players are also going to be in a scenario where they can never again talk about cheating because their people were cheating. And this is why I have the schadenfreude. Because one thing I never agreed with about the famous Olafmeister boost is the angle everyone on Reddit agrees with, which is that their biggest crime was to tell the guy to delete the video and not report it to Valve. Now, that was so that they could use it in a tournament a few months later. And by the way, I will always point this out because this is always mischaracterized. What they were trying to use the bug for essentially was something like pixel walking, but there was no rule against pixel walking. So already that's not an illegal bug. Secondly, the thing they were punished for, being able to see into hidden textures, is not something that they were using the boost for. They were using the boost to see parts of the map that you can see on the map, including with the shitter version of the boost that LDLC did in the same game on CT side. Now, the reason I bring this up is because when everyone hammers that point, well, the fact that you used the thing and didn't just tell Valve about it, some of you didn't tell Valve about something for 5 years. 5 years. Some of you, Starix included, you hate Fnatic for cheating when you think Flusha did it, but you're cool with letting that bug exist for 4 years. Like, how the fuck can these guys reconcile what they've done with the culpability of someone else? It's like the standard they hold for themselves is non-existent, and the standard for the other person is perfection. Like that was literally a massive thing. So I saw years of people saying that Fnatic were like unethical, scum. Well, guess what? That's going to be tons of teams now. That's going to be probably your favorite team at some point in time, depending on how many coaches they've had in their career. So, like, I'll just say this is one of the reasons why, because, you know, people always come at us. I can't believe it because we're considered firebrands. People always come at us as though we're like fucking like bleeding heart liberals because we want like rehabilitation for the iBuyPower guys. And they always want, have you noticed, these young men always want people's heads. They want blood. They want you banned for like, once a cheater, always a cheater. What about simple? But that was the ESL way. It's like, shut the fuck up. Where are your standards? But this is why I always argue for appropriate punishments, because you know what? It's all well and good to go, there's the one guy. Let's all put our psychic problems onto him and for what he's done, punish him to the nth degree. What if I instead said, right, wait, it's him and it's half of you as well? Would you do that still? Nah, you wouldn't when it's your friend that's the one that's getting fired. Like, I've already seen people trying to make arguments on Twitter, pro players and people like that, trying to soften the blow for people who have cheated for potentially a year, 2 years, 3 years. Like, you wouldn't have done that if that was Flusher and you were a NIP player in 2014. You wouldn't have done that if you were Virtus Pro and you thought someone cheated you and that's why you got worse. Like, this is an outrageous standard of personal principles. It shows that you don't have any. You just have them selectively to punish your enemies with. Whereas one thing I have always done in my life, I'm not saying this to brag because it should be the fucking norm. It's not even doing anything special, is I try to figure out what my principles are and I apply them to my enemy and I apply them to my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to. I mean, you have to. I mean, it's like I say, like, there's an even bigger conversation that we're going to have to get into at some point. I mean, if you want to really clean up the scene, and that is that, what about the players? Like, I'll just say this: if I was a betting man, right, which you know, obviously I'm not, but if I was, I would say that given that Hard Legion, which hilariously Starix has joined, I would say that Hard Legion, just by virtue of them having had 2 coaches that abused the bug and abused the bug the most egregiously, as in to get a win over Na'vi, they abused the bug for something like 11 rounds on one map, right? I would say those players know what's going on. There has to be some level of understanding where the coach is like saying, oh yeah, they're rotating here, they're going here, and you're going, how do you know this? Because we're in the game and we don't know this. So how's that information coming in? So I don't think all of the teams knew. I think, for example, like the Furia players are above reproach here, and I believe Guerry's story, right? But he's probably still going to end up getting a very mild punishment.
Yeah, here's one thing to say about that. There's again where people don't think through the alibi. The joke is this: the way the cop knows they did it and knows where to keep looking, or the journalist in this case, to find the body, is that because they didn't think through the alibi and what it implied, like I said about NiKo, it doesn't hold up. As in, it couldn't be true because since they themselves know, well, this obviously isn't really what happened, but what can I like vaguely make seem like it happened? Because they didn't think it through. Think about what they're suggesting. Yeah, listen, I did cheat and effectively have sort of like a wall hack when no one would know I was seeing them. But I never transmitted any of that information in a way that could help my team win.
Yeah.
Then why would you have done it?
Why would you have done it?
So as Richard says there, these are some of the smartest people about Counter-Strike in the world. Like, if people don't know, when those VODs came out years ago with Sean Gares, where he's just calling all the shit and saying, like, what's going to happen, that's most of the genius IGLs. If you're telling me people like them, people like Coldzera, people like fucking, pick all the great players with amazing game sense, that they can't figure out, this is weird. He seems to be calling things that none of us can see, and he's making perfect reads. And not only that, he's only supposed to be watching our POV. Get the fuck out of my face.
Yeah.
No
So this is what I mean. It's like at that point, right? I think, how do you even begin to prove it? Like what we know, what we suspect we know. But I mean, then like some of these tournaments, by the way, they do record voice comms. You're going to be able to hear what
even
the coach
if it's
was
exhaustive. Here's the thing. Like I've always said about cheating, let's do it. Let's run through them. Listen, even if we have to get together 50 admins and pay them all from a massive GoFundMe. By the way, the joke would be if CSPPA or some of the TOs actually weren't in the situation they are financially, this would be one of the best things you could fund. I mean, obviously you'd hope Valve do it, but listen, I'm not fucking naive. I've been around Counter-Strike long enough. So like I say, go through it. I say, try and catch people. And if any players seem like they know, you have to get some punishment, dude. I'm sorry. You use cheated information. You have to get something.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know where this is going to go. I suspect that it's the tip of the iceberg with the coaching scandal. You're going to see some names that people aren't even going to believe. Like I've had some sources tell me some names. I ain't even going to say it because when the hammer drops, it's just going to be it's going to be delicious, mate. I don't even want those people to get out because some of them I don't even think know. Like they've used it and yeah, there are souls twitching, but they don't know. They're hoping they get away with it, or the software might skip their demo, or maybe are they really doing 25? There are some people out there who think they're going to get away with it, and they're not. And there's some names that are going to come out, and I will be howling. I'm going to be howling. I'm going to be howling with laughter, right? Like because it's going to be some of it's going to be too brilliant. So,
mate, if any of them ever talk shit to me, it's game over for you, mate. Like I can think of a certain person from around Germany where I'm kind of hoping you're on that list, my dude.
Yeah, so looking forward to it. But anyway, it's a shame it's come to that, and then we got the match fixing stuff coming out after that. Like, mate, rough time for CS. No getting and Valve are paying attention, and there's going to be reprisals for this, guys. So anyway, look, I was gonna talk about the blast reducing the prize pool and the CSPP and all that. I'll save that for the next show. We'll do that in because it's probably time to get in the viewer questions. It's about that time now, and I don't want to keep you too late. So let's do it, right? Okay. So for those who don't know, we have a Patreon, I should say, rather. And if you give $50, you can ask a question. It can be about anything. Me and Duncan will do the best to answer it. And, you know, it seems to be a popular feature. If you've got the money spare, I know not a lot of us do, you can throw in. If not, don't worry. I keep saying I'm going to rework it, but people keep paying it. So I guess why would I? There's no incentive. But anyway, Reykjavik on Steam says that it turns out that to get kicked from MiBR, all you have to do is cheat, get all of your ranking points taken away, abuse members of the community, perform poorly, act like a child, make racist comments, have your brother attack a fellow competitor, stand idly by whilst your fans act like arseholes, and get paid plenty of money for the pleasure. Is it because we from Brazil? So, not even a question, just a progression of many narrative arcs all coming together.
They are the best ever example. Because, you know, whenever, like, you're a big fan of it as well, that famous narcissist's prayer thing. Yeah. Normally when you post that, right, people only check mark, you know, like 2 or 3 of them. They're the only ones where it's like, it's not even like they get some, that's just their MO. They start at the top and they work their way down. It's mad. Yeah. Like, the joke is now, they're about one brain cell from firing off again and figuring out, wait a minute, why did the fucking HLTV forums make dead cheat? That'll be the next move. It'll be, in fact, by the way, this is where I'm actually glad that, like, esports is big, but in like a very niche sort of like stupid kids on YouTube way where like academics don't care about it. Because there'd be some fucking absolute moron out there, SJW, who would do a whole piece that would be like how the, you know, like systemic racism and oppression of esports forced Brazilian players who were otherwise upstanding to participate in criminal effect. Like they'd find some mad angle as to why like Dead had to do it. It wasn't his fault because, you know, like all those guys harbor like the fucking bigotry of low expectations about everyone that isn't them, basically.
Yeah. It's so, I mean, no, but it's the thing. I think they are still to this day, those players and Dead don't think they've done anything wrong in their careers and that we're all picking on them and we're bullying them. I mean, like, you have to understand the reason I wrote the article. It's not because I'm obsessed with MiBR. It's not because I hate these guys. I've said it many times. I've had beer with these guys. I've gone out with Fallen. I've had a beer with Taco. I've got nothing against these. Well, I didn't have against the people they used to be. I think what they contributed to esports, to not just to Brazilian esports, but esports holistically, was amazing. But when you decide that you're going to turn a blind eye to your own bad behavior and you're going to attack a 16-year-old kid on the come up, ruin his reputation and potentially his life, and also, let's just be real, if they'd gone to the major, if the major had happened, endangered his life. Now, I'm not playing these games anymore. So now, every time people want to learn about the legacy of these players, my article, my videos, I'm writing the history because I was a witness to it all. And enough's enough. You know, they should not get to write their own history.
No, it's the same thing we've always said about Nickel and Ion. It's like, listen, mate, you did get away with it. You got all the money, you got all the fans, you got all the things. But one thing you will never leave this business with is your reputation, how you want it to be. You don't get that part, because I've always said this about players as well. Now, luckily, I'm not such an arsehole that I would just like ruin someone's legacy and lie about them and say they're not good. Like people know I think Forrest's overrated. I don't like deny he was a good player or some shit. I'll say he was like fucking garbage. Like, I'll still be fair, but that's also the point. Where the other people might skip over the things you did because they love you and think you're brilliant, and just the story ends for Nip in 2014, and then, you know, after that they played a few more. Anyway, the end of the story. Like, I keep it going, mate. I'll tell the rest of it. So yeah, that's one of those things. It's one of the reasons, if people don't get it, why I did that video about NiKo. In a perfect world, I wouldn't need to make that video. But if no one else is going to do it, and even worse, you notice I purposely put a little bit in there where it's like, if you're broadcast talent, fucking shame on you that you keep enabling these guys and using storylines from 2017 to talk about like how this FaZe clan is 5 superstar 8. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, you're actually not, you're literally doing harm to this scene. I know you don't think you are because you've mind fucked yourself because you listen to pro players and have a beer with them. As I said earlier, I don't try to have a beer with the players. These guys want at the event to then go and have a beer with NiKo and go, shame about the semi-final, isn't it? Get them next time, chap. Like, they want to do that shit. So because I don't, I'm not going to let you just enable these guys because you've made monsters out of them. They'd already be bad enough as it was. But people have, like, think about that. That is gaslighting. What you're telling that guy is like, your reality is correct. Like, none of the things you're saying is wrong. So then when someone like me comes along, they think, well, you must just hate me to say that because, like, this guy here is cool. Like, I won't say the names, but this guy's a really chill guy and he says I'm doing fine. It's like, that's actually evil. I consider lies like that evil.
Watch Doge says, Rich, and you can get in on this if you want, Duncan. I don't know if it's your scene, like, but he said, if you could bring back any one of the following 4, who would it be and why? Chris Cornell, Kurt Cobain, Layne Staley.
Fucking hell, this is going deep. Why are you opening all these wounds?
I know.
4 wounds. By the way, we can't bring any of them back, but now we have to just fantasize about bringing one back. And also, just choose not to bring 3. This is actually...
I know. It's heartbreaking. Horrible question.
Though, you're getting your money's worth on this one, I can't lie.
or Scott Weiland is the last choice.
People don't know because that last one's not as famous.
Pilots.
Yeah, Stone Temple Pilots. Well, pretty good band as well.
And obviously later he was in Velvet Revolver.
Yeah.
So.
Not bad.
I mean, so this is a hard one because, like I said it before, right? I mean,
who was the third one?
Layne Staley from
Alice.
Alice
Just all grunge rock bands, right? Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So this is a hard one because, like, at various points in my life, they all hit me and hit me differently. So, like, obviously, you know, if you're a kid of the 90s and, like, you know, Nirvana was a good sort of entry level band into grunge. And you know what's tragic about the death of Kurt Cobain. You might be a conspiracy theorist and believe he didn't commit suicide. We won't get into that. But you know what's tragic about the death? we've all watched.
Just ask NiKo, he probably fucking know.
Yeah, true. But anyway,
word goes.
Yeah, but you know what was really tragic about the timing of what happened with Kurt Cobain is, like, you know, they just recorded in utero. They brought in Steve Albini to produce a great album, and that was like sort of representing up until that point the peak of their creativity, sort of a culmination of all of the ideas and imagery. It just all unfortunately happened to intersect with the height of Kurt Cobain's addiction and drug problems, and unfortunately being married to someone who was an enabler of the worst kind. So that was really tragic because I think he was someone that would have undoubtedly grown as an artist and a creative force and would have produced much better records. You know, the Nirvana Unplugged live set really shows just how good they were becoming musically and where they were drawing their musical influences from. So that's always a bit of a pill to swallow. But then that said, Alice in Chains for me musically were a much better band than Nirvana. I mean, like, I don't think anyone can doubt that. I mean, just in terms again of pure technical aptitude, and Layne Staley represented something unique. Like he had a voice like no one else, and heartbreaking again when you go and watch his Unplugged set. You know, he's having to wear leather gloves because the only place he could shoot up was through his knuckles. It was so brutally wretched, and even the tragedy of how he died. Like, no one knew where he was. They didn't find his body for like 10 days or something. He was fucking so badly decomposed they couldn't identify him by sight. And that's like such an awful end for such like a phenomenal talent, but also someone who you felt ultimately when you watched him, you felt he was doomed. Like, he had this like aura about him. But Alice in Chains was such a good band. Scott Weiland, I liked Stone Temple Pilots. I always thought Purple was their best album. Never really liked, what was the first one again? I can't remember. Was it Core, or what was it called? The one with Plush.
No, I don't think so. I can't remember what the first one was called, but it was the one that had like some of the biggest hits on. Yeah,
but I always thought Purple was a better record musically. The thing with Scott Weiland was, by all accounts, like the DeLeo brothers.
Apparently he's a massive wanker, right?
Yeah. They really tried. Like, it's like, this wasn't like a band that like just didn't care or didn't try or, you know, were distant and they weren't really friends. These guys bent over backwards, tried to get him into rehab. have a budge. Like, his voice was incredible, but I always felt he was the guy that almost like egregiously, like when it got to the point where Stone Temple Pilots kicked him out after, like, I think it was Tiny Music at the Vatican gift shop, like, because they just couldn't work with him. He was just too wrecked all the time. They'd have studio time to record an album and he'd be so fucked up, and it felt to me he was the most egregiously bad in terms of his behavior, and it continued over into Velvet Revolver. It's still a tragedy. It's obviously addicts are fools to themselves in that sense. But the one that really hit me, I think, was Chris Cornell, because you thought he got free and clear of it all. You thought he, a voice like just no one else in rock, like one of the best singers rock's ever had. Been in every band he was in, every song he crafted. It was just so good. And you're like, well, he's fucking 50 now. Like, he's not gonna. He's got free and clear of all of the noise and the bullshit, and then he tops himself. That really rocked me, actually, Chris Cornell dying. That really did. That was so sad because it came out of left field, It was like, what was it? And then obviously the guy from Linkin Park.
Yeah, Chester Bennington.
Yeah, Chester did it. What was it, like, on Chris Cornell's birthday?
Something like that, yeah. Because obviously they had some like connection or whatever,
They were best mates. I mean, they were at each other's weddings and shit. So really, really fucking tragic. I mean, so it's so hard to like say who would I bring back and why. I mean, I would probably, out of the two, it'd probably be a toss-up between Layne Staley and Chris Cornell, but I'd be really hard-pushed to pick.
For me, it's easy, because here's the thing. I'll go through them all. Like, Chris Cornell, the problem I have is I actually love Soundgarden, but if you've ever read any like the books or the interviews about them, he basically wasn't like, he only started in like grunge. He sort of like preferred like the more folk side of music. So unfortunately, I prefer like the hard rock sound of like Kim, whatever the fuck his name is, who did like the guitars. So like I like that aspect. So I wasn't as big a fan of like Audio Slave, for example. Like, I like the background music. That was because the Rage Against the Machine guys. So for me, I just wasn't a huge fan of his music as a solo guy or some of the stuff he was going towards. So fair enough, just not my shit. Kurt Cobain, I'm actually one of the people where I think Bill Hicks nailed it. I think he, and like Doug Stanhope, their takes, it's like he was out of shit. Like, I don't think he actually, like, I think he might have done a couple more albums, but I also think actually he was someone who was just going to quit and just go on a fucking island or something like Tupac did or whatever. Jokes. And, but, like, I think he would have just hung it up. I don't think he wanted to do it anymore. So unfortunately, I don't think you get that much more music if he does it. And I actually agree, by the way. I think actually in Utero is mad underrated. I think actually the direction they were going in probably got more, like, the problem with the other one is, it's like those first two Oasis albums, they've just been destroyed by radio play. Like, I don't ever want to hear them again in my life. But that in Utero,
never mind. Never mind.
It was going somewhere. It was going somewhere interesting in Utero. I like that. So I would have liked more albums. So he's up there. I'm going to spoil it already. Layne Staley is the one I'm picking, and the main reason why is, first of all, I agree, his voice is unbelievable. And even though he didn't write the music, first of all, like, as you say, the musical side of that band was fucking unbelievable as well. Like, Jerry Cantrell is a fucking monster, mate. He is so good.
Unbelievably.
And bear in mind, he did keep doing music to this day. That means they could literally have done, like, if he could have stayed, they could have done like 10 more albums. So I think that's one of those ones where, like, they could have been a fucking monster of rock. They could have been like a fucking, like a Black Sabbath or, like these people who like instant Hall of Fame. I mean, they'll probably get in anyway because one with they've sold and they might even already be in for that fucking all. But like, it's one of those ones where half of it's nostalgia. And then for Scott Weiland one, I'm with you on that one. Like, I didn't mind their band was pretty good. Like, if you're into that music, I like that genre in general. But his biggest problem is, in fact, actually he ties into sort of like the MiBR people. His biggest mistake is he thought it was the 1970s. Like, the shit he was trying to pull, where you are the super egotistical rock star, but it's like, I'm the front man, so everyone's here to see me. You can't do it without me. That only worked in the 70s because, like, this is why it ties in like the NiKo type thing. Every music journalist, like in Almost Famous, is sucking your dick. They're not going to write the stories about what you're actually like and about how you fucked off this fan and kicked out the fucking guitarist or something, whatever. Like, they're going to let you get off with it. If you do all that shit in like the late 90s, mate, it's already been and gone. Like, that's the end of your dinosaur at that point in time.
Also, as well, it was so antithetical to what the scene was about. Like, a big part of the grunge culture was a backlash against, traditional rock. And then you got Scott Weiland, who's doing his best Jim Morrison impression, essentially. So
out Layne Staley. He'd have the best music as well. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, like, also as well, I mean, like, because Chris Cornell got the best innings out of them. I could fall down and say Layne Staley as well, but like, Chris Cornell was a heartbreaker. Someone just said as well, actually, like, on the anniversary of his death or something, I was fucking drunk and fucked up, and I thought, oh yeah, I was listening to like a Stone by Audio. I think I'm the top comment on their official YouTube video. Just saying, missing you, Chris, because it really, really sucks. It really does. Great question, Watch Torch. Heartbreaking, depressing one. Fall off the wagon immediately.
Well, it's an interesting question, actually.
No, it's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah.
I could talk about, mate, there's a great book, actually, Duncan. You should read it. It's called Everyone Loves Our Town. It is the complete history of grunge, but it is told anecdotally from all the people who were there. So all the starting bands, all the obscure bands, like, you know, all the guys at Mudhoney and all that, like, you know, and incredibly, Kurt Cobain tells anecdotes in it because Francis Bean Cobain gave over Kurt's diaries.
There we go. Okay.
So it's super sick, mate.
Also, like the real answer, we skipped it because you didn't point it out. I'd bring back that Eddie Vedder guy. I mean, it's a shame he only did that one album because he was so fucking talented. And the thing is, I'd like to see what he'd have become. Like, I think he could have become he wouldn't have like sold out and been a total piece of shit, beating arsehole, left wing tosser who didn't know anything, supported all the establishment, basically like just spoke against things that didn't even make sense, sold out everything he stood for. So I just think if he could have lived.
Yeah. I mean,
and I don't give a fuck.
Do you want to know what the worst thing about that is, man? Pearl Jam launched official Riding with Biden merchandise. No joke. It's a monster truck with lightning coming down and riding with Biden. Like, no joke. Like,
could you even imagine? Like this? If listen, it's been the case.
The guy who wrote Vitalogy.
Yeah. But like, if there was ever a time where the responsible thing is like, don't vote, and then none of them can do it. None of them can do it. I'm not even saying vote for it. I'm just saying don't vote.
Yeah.
They can't do it, mate.
Can't, mate. Next one, RezChi. You're given 3 years free, unlimited service for one of the following.
Ooh.
A masseuse, a chauffeur, or an excellent chef. Which one would you choose?
Ooh. See, I'll go with this one first because I would easily pick chef. Like, of the three, that's the one I'm by far the most interested in. Like, I can use Ubers anyway, so I'm essentially chauffeured wherever I go. I don't really give a fuck about massages. I've never really been into that. I've never seen what like the point of it is. I'm not against like all spa stuff. Like the sauna's pretty cool, but I've just never really got the thing with massage. So, especially because, like, listen, I'm not going to go down some weird route here, but like, just listen. Be careful with the words you use. Like, if you say that the massage is going to be a sensual experience, you've put me off immediately. Listen, just say something like, you know, fucking, it's going to really help your muscles or something. Don't be like a sensorial experience that will take it. It's like, nah, mate, where's this going? Am I signed something here? What does this, is this like TOS? By agreeing to this, do you just get to have a cheeky go and see if I'm into it or not? Whatever. So anyway, I'd easily pick chef because first of all, I love food. And also the other thing that's mad underrated, I didn't know this because I come from a poor background, is so many of the foods I thought I didn't like because I was just using the shittest ingredients and I didn't have any cooking skill. The real secret I've learned, it blows my mind, I didn't know this, is the taste of food is all about like how you season it, like what sort of herbs you put in the spice. So if you don't know that and you just straight up cook like the ingredients on their own, they will taste shit in comparison. So what I think a chef can make most food, like a really good chef, you'd eat almost anything to make. So I'd go with that one easy.
I'd probably take the masseuse, man. Just pure and simple. Like, I mean, the chef would be good because it would definitely help me get my weight down. I wouldn't be eating shite, just like hunched over a keyboard all day like some fucking gremlin. But that's just the life of a journalist. It's too late now anyway. Whatever, you know, just give up. Just give up. It's fine. But like a masseuse, like, mate, my body is absolutely fucked. Like, I've got knee pain, back pain. You know, every time I lift weights, just fucked for days, stiff. You know, everything, like, nothing works. Like, muscle cramps. Like, wake up in the middle of the night with just a random fucking Charlie horse in my fucking, like, car for no reason. Probably because I had a dream where I'm running or something. You're like a fucking dog. It's mental. So, masseuse for me, like, I would get the most benefit out of that. Like, I am literally like, I'm living like a fucking pug dog now, where my existence is pain. I can't deal with it. So, masseuse for me. Adward says, touching on another point with the MiBR saga, how bad do you feel for the Nip style fifth players? The Phelps, the TRKs, the Lucases, the Bolts, etc., who have been used and discarded by that core. How much is it another failing on the Fallen Taco Fur core? I mean, I made the joke where I said, look at this poor bastard, because TRK like just put like a statement out like on his Insta or something, basically saying like, well, there's no plans. We don't know what's going on. Like that, and I said that poor bastard. And of course, the Brazilians that replied to it, going, "Why are you calling him a bastard?" I'm going, "It's a British idiom. Here's the definition of it." No, you don't mean it like that. Yeah. So the same people, by the way, who were saying to me like, "Oh no. When we say we will kill you if you come to Brazil, that's just a lovely phrase." Or when we chant "you're gonna die," it doesn't literally mean it. They don't understand. They won't give you the benefit of the doubt for an idiom you use. Very, very cool. Very cool. But anyway, so I know, like, I think at the end of the day, it just shows like how little these guys were trying and how little these guys give a fuck. Because when you talk about some of the names there, not only are these all talent, like they're different kinds of talent. You think about Phelps, explosive, very much a player like Fur. They had him, used him, discarded him. You got Lucas, more of a role player, anchorman on a bomb site. You know, very intelligent, can contribute with mid-round calls. You used him, you discarded him, nothing gets better. Bolts, of course, like, you know, consummate rifler, calm under pressure, you know, unique style. You know, you've used him, you've discarded him. You've had two youngsters like Mayor and TRK, inexperienced, looking to learn, sponges to soak up all that knowledge from all your experience. Couldn't get nothing out of them. This is what I mean. It's like, at what point?
Indictment of Fallen, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. No, but it's the thing. It's like, listen, that's why, like, you got to accept the Fallen mythology. Like, you got to understand, it's just bullshit now.
Yep.
Like, he right. People tell me he's a tactical genius. Why is it they still can't play Inferno or Nuke to any degree of competency? After how many years? Why can he not figure out how to play Inferno if he's such a great tactical genius? It's like, I reckon he could. I just don't think he tries. I think he's so set in his ways, you know. And then, okay, well, he's a great leader. He's such a great leader. These guys were all acting like fucking dickheads, ruining the brand. I mean, it used to be, if you remember, famously, for a lot of their past controversies, Fallen would be the guy who come out and diffuse the situation. Where's he been the past 18 months while they've just been fucking going wild? Doing nothing, encouraging it probably, stalking it, or just counting his money, doing a Scrooge McDuck in his fucking money bin, right? And he's a great developer of youth and youth talent, and he's got an eye for talent. Well, you got nothing out of TRK, you couldn't develop man. These people are just offered up on the altar of sacrifice to your selfishness. And it's ridiculous. And like anyone, by the way, who thinks this version of Fallen in 2020 has any value to a team whatsoever beyond like being a sort of marquee signing or whatever, you're out of your motherfucking minds. He needs to go back to the drawing board. He needs to take some fucking ayahuasca or some DMT and just purge himself of all of the negative stuff. Like, it's the only way he's getting back to actually being a good IGL. It's ridiculous.
Think about when at the end of 2017, that FaZe Clan team of Karrigan, their nemesis was SK. SK was always the one that beat them. Everyone remembers that famous record where like Karrigan had never beaten Fallen on Overpass, even though, by the way, Overpass was one of Karrigan's maps. It's one of the maps that he'd always made very strong and designed a lot of the Molotovs on it, the T-side, etc. Right? In that world there, everyone would tell you, well, of course, Fallen's way better than Karrigan. You know, Fallen's got 2 majors, Karrigan 0 majors. Yeah. You know, both elite teams. Tell you what, that's starting to go heavily towards Karrigan's side now, and he still hasn't won a major, mate. Like, he's won tier 1 meaningful tournaments in 4 different years. I think the only year he didn't was 2016. He's made the most of practically every talent that has come through his doors. This is the guy, by the way, who resurrected Kiyashima from the dead. This is the guy who, like, even figured out that Jacob shouldn't be in FaZe. And later on, he went and had a totally different role. They're like, this guy doesn't miss. It is unbelievable. So all Fallen has now is one thing. He has more majors. That is it. In every other metric, how do you use the talent? Longevity of winning, adapting to different styles, beating all the top teams of each era. Again, like bringing up talent, bringing back talent from the dead. He's the one who brought Guardian back from the dead. Yeah. This guy is fucking unbelievable. So I'm not saying he's the greatest ever, but I tell you what, Fallen's eliminating himself from that discussion. Like, as we say here, the Fallen story is going to be like the rise pretty quick, like 1 year or so, amazing 2 years. Everything after that is going to be shit. And the worst thing is there's no excuses for any of it. Like, you can't even come up with like a good angle as to what it wasn't like, oh, but then no players would join it. That was like the last year or so, dude. And that was after they almost got simple. That's U2K. Like, mate, there's a longer list of people Fallen couldn't make work in his team than could. It's the opposite with Carrigan. I can barely think of anyone for Carrigan. That's how ridiculous the guy's career was. So, like, I'm just contrasting there because, again, in people's minds, Fallen's up here and Carrigan's like, I'll never be at his level. It's like in one regard only.
Yeah. Next question is from Ehco. He says, CSGO's existed for over 8 years now, and we've seen truly great teams across multiple countries and multiple regions. Which country region do you think has been the most successful and the most dominant? If we look at CSGO holistically, you can combine Russia and the Ukraine, call it the CIS region. You can call Canada and USA the North American region.
It's basically between Sweden and Denmark, innit? It depends which you want to pick for all the CS. Like, obviously, Astralis is like the best team, but then again, I mean, we had NiP, we had Fnatic, we still have a good Fnatic in the last few years. I think Sweden probably edges it overall.
It's a very tough one for me because unfortunately, the problem you've got is, like, if you look at the early era of kind of CSGO when we were first growing out, let's be real, those eras weren't particularly competitive. I mean, they just weren't. There was like a handful of teams that were taking it seriously, and it just so happened that 2 of them happened to be Swedish out of the handful that were. That was a time period where, sure, like Fnatic, NIP, obviously great teams, and then you go into 2015, scene starting to grow. You have Fnatic at the start of that year, and then obviously goes the way of the French, and then it swings back to the Swedes for a little bit. But then after that, I mean, Swedish Counter-Strike's not really relevant in any meaningful capacity, and that's when
like the very, very top, of course.
No, and then that's when Astralis sort of rise into the ascendancy. And let's be clear that at every time Astralis has dominated an era, it has always been the era that was like the most competitive. I mean, you can make an argument and talk about like how good 2016 was and stuff, but was there really strength in depth there? If you go back and you look at like Luminosity and Na'Vi being a big talking point, and Team Liquid maybe, but no one really believed, but it was America. Like I just don't think there was a strength in depth. Meanwhile, by the time 2017 comes trucking and Astralis go on to win in Atlanta and beat that Virtus Pro side, this is like the start of something very special. Now, I always thought Krakow was an anomaly. Like that entire event is just in memory hold for me. Like, I don't think any of that counts. It's so ridiculous. A Gambit Immortals final is so insane. But then after that, via way of Boston, it's Astralis. So for me, like, I mean, obviously, if you include Sweden and Denmark as like the Scandic region, I mean, it's hands down there.
Easy.
Yeah, but it's not even a debate. But for me, I think what the Danes did and just how they were able to take a country, what is it, like 5.8 million population, and basically create. I mean, let's not forget as well, there were other Danish teams around this time knocking on the door and competing. So yeah, it's got to be Denmark for me. I think their achievements in the modern era of Counter-Strike are unprecedented. Like, Astralis are just the core of Astralis is god tier.
The real crying shame is that the obvious third place, but a clear third place, is the French. And they really actually could have been the ones who just fucking hacked the game, because they were at the beginning. They've always been there on some level. At least one French team's been good, but they just haven't made good the last few years, have they? Haven't won the big championships, unfortunately. Yeah. But again, that's the French for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the French, obviously, the thing is that they're more of the biggest disappointment for me in a way, because they had some of the best global talent to draw upon. You could have put 2 teams together that should have realistically been competing to be the best in the world, but it just never worked out like that.
And it was their own fault, let's be real. It was their own stupid inability to get along, to use, like, the idea that they would take people like Scream and go, we can't use you anymore, mate. Kenny S. Shocks, nah, never put them together for 5 years. Like, stuff like that's just stupid, isn't it? It's like you're not even trying.
Yeah, absolutely mad. Like, so, great question. Thanks for that. All right, a few more. Siggoh, what is the best cheap, tasteful, easy, and somewhat healthy student dinner? This is a Duncan area.
Cheap one.
You love beans on toast,
healthy.
mate, don't you? You do love a beans.
I was
on
a fan
toast.
of that. Yeah. Right, the problem now is, in my current worldview, I don't really think pasta is actually healthy. But I will say, This is just a little trick if you're a student. You know, in England, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but you know, you get those packs where it's like, it's just ready-made, essentially, the pasta, and you just put it in a pan, and it comes with the sauce and the pasta, and it heats up, and then you just have the meal ready in like 10 minutes or whatever. The trick is this. They even put it on the back of the pack, but people don't read it. All you do is, when you're heating the water up, because it has to get like to its like simmering before you put the pasta in, you just put like a spoon of butter in, and it basically makes the food taste, no joke, 10 times better. So that meal probably costs a couple of pounds, and you just put a little bit of butter in, and it literally tastes fucking amazing if you're a student.
So let me tell you, like, all you need to do, students, if you want to fucking eat like a king and get gains as well, if you're going in the gym and do it on a budget, just go Google prison swole. Right now, don't do it on certain sites because you might not like what you find.
Give me a break.
But prison swole, it's basically like,
isn't that Carly Muscle or whatever? Is that his name?
Carly Muscle has done a video on it, I'm pretty sure, but like there's a lot out there. But basically, it's how you take like cheap foods that are like calorific, but obviously like also very filling,
and also very often have a base of ramen and
like,
ramen and other things.
Ramen or cheap pasta or noodle packs. Just mate. That stuff's insane. Like, smashing up a Doritos pack for fucking spice on pasta, filling it with tuna.
Is it because they need to get as many calories as they can? Because bulking or whatever.
Yeah, because so prison swole, it's cheap as fuck, but you're just full all day. It's like it's just a massive calorific hit. Like, so if you're going out, and keep in mind, this is for students who are like young enough, you just burn it off. You won't put on any fat, like as long as you're doing a modicum of exercise when you're like between 18 and fucking 20, 23. Honestly, you can just hit the gym, go out, get lashed up all night, stomach perma full. That's the dream. Get some swole in you.
That's not the catchphrase. That is
Prodigy did one of those videos, mate, where he made like barbecue salmon prison style. It actually looked fucking banging. So maybe
who was that?
Prodigy, the guy from Mobb Deep, the one who passed
real
away.
Rapper?
Prodigy. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Because I don't know if you know this, but he did do a bit like. He did do a stretch, mate.
Yeah.
Alon said, if you could give NiKo one piece of advice, we've done that bit, unfortunately, Alon.
I think we've somewhat exhaustively given NiKo advice, which if you haven't noticed, he's not paying attention to any of it. So my advice to NiKo would be fuck off.
Yeah.
Basically, what that guy in Middlesbrough said after Darth Vader said, no.
Mate, I wish I'd recorded it. Like, it's so meant, like, I'd still hear it to this day. No! And then just, like, definitely silence. Fuck off! It was so Middlesbrough. It was so perfect. Like, and then AliceTheAlchemist asks, hey, Rich, with the US election coming ever close, it was already a good one.
Come on.
How soon do you reckon the US will be fucked because Kamala Harris will become the first corrupt president? That's also not true. That's also not true. It does say the first corrupt female president. So
there we go.
That's fair. That's fair. Listen, I'll do some elections special stuff, but like, I'm going to stream on the day. I don't know if you want to get a piece of this. No, I probably can't do it. Probably can't have you around for it. But
anyway, I'll just say this. First of all, it didn't work out that well last time we tried that. Secondly, turned out that was the ultimate thing where we didn't even know we time capsuled our eventual demise. So
yeah,
we only just got away with that one. So the other thing is this. I don't know. Like, listen, I don't claim to be an expert on politics, but I'll just for a second apply the sort of intuition and like sense for human nature that I apply in esports. And I'll just tell you this. If Biden was going to win, and he could confidently say that, and if he did, logic is he's old and, maybe Kamala Harris has to take over for whatever reasons. Why would all of the mainstream media be pushing the angle that the next election might be fraudulent? That's the only little breadcrumb I'm going to give you there, mate, because the whole thing about the media is it's like Nickel and IHOB. They know that the really shrewd people will pick up on the lies, but it's irrelevant as long as everyone else swallows it. So they speak to you on a level where if they speak like they're talking to an idiot, that's because that's what they take you for. And they know that whatever angle they push you in, even if you grudgingly do it, you're going to go down that path. So there's a reason why they're going out of their way to build that angle up. It's not because they're assured that their candidate's going to win. That's all I'll say.
So just before we start wrapping up the show, and Sam, you are going to have to follow me here. There was one Reddit comment that I wanted to address on the show as well, and again in an act of pure self-indulgence, because it's just stupid, and it was in reply to one of your comments on Reddit, Thorin. So it's from a moron called Pilkgab. What I'm going to do for you now, Pilk, mate, I'm going to give you an injection of reality. I fully expect your body and your brain to reject it because you're clearly a fucking moron, but we'll try anyway, right? He said to you, Thorin, I wish you had the balls. Well, why won't you grow some balls, Duncan? I wish you had the balls.
It's been one of my big failings in life, you know, not cacoethes or anything, you know.
Yeah. Thorin, I wish you had the balls to tell Richard how disconnected from reality he is whenever he goes on a rant about how there are no cheaters in high-tier CS. Never really gone on a rant about that, but whatever.
You always say there could be some, but it's just,
I always say law of averages dictates.
Yeah, exactly.
There'll be like
at least
a
one
handful. Yeah. In every By the Numbers, every episode of By the Numbers, Richard goes on one of these defensive rants while I can see you sit there while your eyes glaze over. It's funny how defensive Richard gets about this topic when there is clear evidence of so many coaches cheating, and you can argue about this, but it's pretty clear some of the players were acting on the information again. So, like, listen, this is the worst aspect of the coach cheating thing. It's allowed these mentally ill people go, we were right about the Valve conspiracy theory the whole time. Right, so first of all, I've never said that there won't be, like, some people cheating in high-level CS. Never. The idea I rant about it on every episode of By the Numbers when it's just not relevant, like, to most conversations, you know, is also absurd. It probably comes up once in a blue moon, usually when we're joking about Flusher, for reasons. But here you go. I'm going to quote you an article just to show how fucking mentally ill you actually are, Pilkgab, right? I'm going to quote you an article I wrote. So here we go. You can surely, you know, we can glean some information from this. So when people got banned in the thing that Vax sucks and all the other lunatics that think Valve are in on a conspiracy, when all that went down, right, and it was called the Vackening, if you remember, in 2014, I was the only journalist, the only one who said, well, this shouldn't surprise anyone that people are cheating, right? It's literally how it goes on all the time. So I will read you a quote from that article. It talks about my own history with cheats and how I leaked a private cheat and know that private hacks were being used. So here we go. It says here that no one should be shocked. Yes, this is the largest scandal to ever hit the scene, but it was one the scene had long been moving towards and which no one did anything to halt. So in what way am I a fucking cheat denialist, you fucking dickhead? Like, how small is your fucking brain? Like, the facts are just out there. I'm like the only guy that's ever talked about it, like, and actually wrote articles and talked about cheating and how prevalent it is. Like, just because I don't believe that, oh, well, Shucks has landed a headshot, so he's cheating. They're all cheating because I'm shit at the game. Valve are covering it up. No, that's just mental illness. Unfortunately, mentally ill, but you won't know this because you are mentally ill. So it's not your fault that you can't grasp this concept. Mentally ill people gravitate towards conspiracy theories. Do you know why? Because they have all these fucked up ideas in their head, and it's like some form of, like, passive validation. It's just a delusion, mate. You're just out of your mind. That's why Thorin doesn't have the, quote, balls to fucking talk. It's because none of it's real. It's in your head, you ugly, drooling bastard.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've never understood. Is, like, first of all, I'm one of the only people in all of CS that says I think Flusher cheated. And I have said it every single year of my life. By the way, I've even done an interview with Flusher since then. And because he understands I actually say it in a legit way, he didn't even mind. I mean, obviously didn't tell him in the interview, I think you cheated. Like, that goes out. Listen, I've already made that joke to him about 50 times in real life.
Yeah.
When he's giving that little shitty grin of a probable cheater or whatever. No, the point is, until about last year, the number one flaw of my career was having too much balls. Just always saying the thing that you're not allowed to say, but that because of who I am, I cannot not say it because it drives me crazy that no one will say it. So the idea that of all the things I'd be sitting on, it's the motherlode that loads of pros are cheating. That ain't me, my dude. That isn't me. And I will say this as well. I certainly have been always open to the idea that even top pros online could be cheating. I just won't rule it out. I've just seen too much weird stuff in life. I've gone down too many rabbit holes of conspiracy shit. And I never bought the angle of, like, this is one thing I've never bought, is the idea of like, but what if they got caught? No criminal thinks he's going to be caught. That's actually essential to the criminal mind, is that I'm going to get away with it. That doesn't happen to me. Like, it's the same with the people who don't get it. Like, people who do violent crime, they always think, I'm going to get out just before I get killed by the guys or fight with the cops. So they never think they're going to be the one at the end. They always think it's like drugs. They think they can quit before. So no one's thinking of that. The whole point is these are people who make bad decisions. That's why they go into a life of crime. That's why they cheat. Obviously, if you're as good as these guys are and you cheat, you could also just put in the fucking hours and get probably that good at the game. Like, it doesn't even make sense. That's why it'd have to be like a few idiots probably.
But just for the record, you don't believe Valve are in on any mad conspiracy.
No. I actually think people have misunderstood a story I told then.
Yeah, there was a seriously mentally deranged guy who's been spamming me saying you absolutely do believe it. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know Duncan and I've done a show with him and I've listened to what he has to say.
No, I think there's two things he's confused now. One, that was a famous conspiracy some other people had. Yeah. That like they just got them all in a room and said, look, we've caught 10 of you bastards, but we're not going to kill all of you. So stop cheating. Like, first of all, it's not even a very plausible one because that would be like the ultimate thing to get leaked. That'd be big time shit. And secondly, and this is the more important one, I think they're taking that story where I've said that I don't think Valve cares about cheating, as in it has to be flagrant and totally proven before they care, because there is a story where at DreamHack Winter 2014, this very same major, I did take a Valve dev to a computer and say, look, mate, you can't just dismiss this. Like, look at these clips and tell me you at least don't think it's suspicious. I said, all you have to tell me, you don't have to agree, but just at least tell me some of these look dodgy. And he literally, it was like one of those guys out of Westworld. It's like, I don't see anything here. He like kept trying to not look. Literally kept like, well, I wouldn't need to look at that because he can't cheat anyway. And I said, listen, just look at a couple of the clips. After that, I won't even harass you anymore, mate. Just look at a couple of the clips. It's like during some downtime, by the way, where they're arguing about all this shit. And then he was just going like, listen, we've checked the mice. They couldn't have cheated. I said, no, just look at this. By the way, you'll love this. Your boy Hellspawn was there. And he just goes, that's not even as bad as when I'm playing in matchmaking. I just wanted to be like, could you just fuck off? Like, but unfortunately at the time I had to pretend he was actually not a revolting Baron Harkonnen piece of shit cunt, because I actually at the time wanted to work for DreamHack. So, you know, I used to hold a little bit back
He
then.
is Baron Harkonnen. That's so perfect.
He is. He's just revolting, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He is a revolting person and a liar and a piece of shit. Yeah. All true. Anyway,
all the keynotes there, all the usual.
Yeah, we've done it. Yep. Now there you go. See, you're always ranting about DreamHack, Richard. Every episode, and Duncan's eyes roll up into his head. I glaze over, and I know the things he says more than you on your show. Like, okay,
it's probably, by the way, my number one pet peeve in esports: people reading my mind. Like, listen. Totally. I've had to navigate that place for 37 years. You have no clue what's going on in my mind. If you did, you'd be saying a lot more crazy shit some of the broadcasts I'm on. Some of the shit I'm thinking of with some of my co-workers, mate. You can't read my mind at all. Stop doing it.
Right. Just 1 second, though. I do just want, like... So, just so people know what we're talking about. Right, Sam. That is Hellspawn from DreamHack, in case people don't know. Just bring it up, right? And then I'm going to get Baron Harkonnen.
He does look so much like him, though, doesn't he? It's actually legit. Just watch when it comes up.
I can't do it.
It better be from the David Lynch movie as well.
Yeah, of course. Love David Lynch's version. Loads of people say it's shit. I think it's wicked. Like, although I am looking forward to the new one.
No, because what they don't get about it is, listen, it's got a lot of flaws to it, but the aesthetic of it is fucking amazing. Like, they captured that really well.
So there you go. There's a picture with him looking like sort of at a similar angle, Sam.
Yeah.
Right, so just bring these up, put them side by side.
It's so ridiculous, isn't it? Like, I don't know, just do it. No, just do it. Listen, this is a cunt who deserves it, let's be real. So just do it anyway.
Put it side by side.
Right.
And obviously do the joke where you say this one's Hellspawn and that one's Baron Harkonnen, and then you go, and this one, you know, the old... See, hey, listen, look, I'm looking now. Right, wait there. I'll just open the stream. Right, okay, look. So you've got Hellspawn on the left from DreamHack. He's a top admin and tour director. And on the right, you have Baron Harkonnen, who's a disgusting, pus-filled piece of shit dictator who abused his power. Actually was rightfully killed.
So excellent.
In a video game.
Excellent work, Duncan, with that reference. And then finally, and then we're really wrapping up the show. In fact, actually, we'll do that bit at the end. All right. Shout out to the sponsors. No one wants to sponsor the show anymore. It's been an abomination. It's been a full. As if you're still laughing.
It's just so reasonable, isn't it?
Man, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. Like, fuck this podcast. It's just like, it's just so much negative energy.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just too much, mate. Anyway, shout out to our sponsors for now. .com. We love those guys. .com/RLS. You go to peak.com and 9Es as well if you want. Basically, sign up. You want to play some bets on some esports events? Do it over there. They'll match up to $100 that you deposit down. Great sponsors. We love working with them. And also our other sponsor, NordVPN. Go to nordvpn.com/RLS. Get yourself 70% off a VPN. Always useful. Good thing to have. It's cheaper than a Twitch Prime sub. So, you know, or Twitch sub, I should say. And obviously, shout out to our patrons. $100 patron, Jerky's Minion, Kashinath, Sean Gares, I believe, or S Gares, it says it.
Yeah, I think that is Sean Gares. I'm pretty sure it is. I haven't checked. I've looked. I've done like preliminary check.
I've got to say this. Here's what's mad about that. Sean Gares is such a G and has always been so nice to me that I would believe he would subscribe. I just can't believe he does. Because part of me thinks, how has he not ever seen the mad things about Shazam that we kept saying? And like, I'm not joking. I even think he'd be totally justified just not even being friends with me anymore after that, because it's so unreasonable.
I've told him about that joke when I've been sat down with him. I've told him about that joke.
It's one of the ones I almost feel mildly guilty about, except it's just funny, so it just overrides that.
Yeah, I don't feel remotely guilty. I think it's hilarious. Like I've told it to him. I said like, oh, we did do that joke, Sean, about like how, you know, the only reason you kept Shazam around was like he had some fucking mad like throat grip technique in a blowjob. Like, I've explained it to him. Like, it's just Sean's a G. He don't give a fuck. He just don't give a fuck, mate. He's just living the dream. #1 like Valorant caster at the moment. Guy's a fucking absolute legend. Like, anyway, if it is you, Sean, much love to you, mate. I really appreciate it as always. Like, I'll see you soon. Flacksmith, AliceTheAlchemist, Reykjavik on Steam, and Madams, and our $50 patrons: Smart as Superman, Gaming Paul DK, Alon, Daniel Magnuson, Ehco, RezChi, Miss Alcoholic, Cathal, J Dubs, Tobias Bonasconi, Butt Pounder 420, Watch Doge, Carve, Madsen, Adam Edward, Zinged, Benakagi, Marcus Kyumpar, Sard Sawar, and Siggoh. And just to end the show, there's another member of the talent pool called Bok. You might know him as Bok TV on Twitter. And he's done a little funny tweet by the look about MiBR and linking it to the game Among Us. So we'll end on that, mate. Thanks a lot to everyone who tuned in. We had huge numbers today, not unsurprising with all of the drama. Thanks to everyone who subscribed through donations in and all that. We'll see you on the next episode. Until then, take care.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.